Well, 6 p.m. I wanted to call the meeting to order and welcome the audience here. We're very pleased to have you. I also want to acknowledge that Brenna is absent and excused, so include that in the minutes. Let's start with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lummi tribes, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Steps towards allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval agenda, Nick,
No changes. No changes.
If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
A motion to approve the agenda is written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Go to the order.
Yeah, so this is our first board meeting since the school year restarted. So a lot of back to school routines. Our kindergartners started last week and the preschool students right after them. You know, staff and families both are working hard getting kiddos back into routines, and it's working quite well. And we're really happy to see the relationships getting rebuilt. You know, there's definitely a positive vibe to the start of the school year as the relationships are being rekindled and rebuilt between the staff and the students. You know, there were a couple challenges this last week at the secondary campus, but really we relied on those relationships to help us get those solved, right? The relationships between the students, student to student, student to staff, as well as staff to families to communicate about things and hopefully lower the concern. So, you know, so far pretty positive start. We're excited about it and we're happy to have the kiddos back. Yeah.
Welcome. Accept consent agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is information from audience. Do you have anyone signed up? So I see Larry. Yeah. Come on up, Larry.
Take a seat.
Thank you for coming, by the way.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question, and I think it's pretty straightforward. I want to know individually what's your understanding of what the situation is in the bus garage. That's the question. And I guess it doesn't happen now. The answer doesn't happen now, but I'm over there tomorrow. Everybody wants to come and talk, or some other way.
What do you mean by situation?
We don't have a mechanic.
Okay.
I'm there till November 1st, and then after that, I don't know what your plan is. So I'm just curious what the strategy is for going from there.
Okay.
Is that good? All right.
Is there anything else that you want to share about the situation or concerns or?
Well, I've got lots of concerns.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the place to talk about them,
Yeah.
but one is that buses don't go down the road magically by themselves. And Alex's situation is totally up in the air. We have no idea what's going on there. I retired. I came back to help for a couple months, but I don't want to do this. I got the school year started. I think things are going fairly well. I'm running into issues that are kind of hard to deal with. Being new in the shop, it's a good thing I had some experience before in the shop before I went to Bellingham. because otherwise I'd be walking around just trying to find things or whatever. So I think I've been able to keep things going, but it's not gonna be long. I just don't see keeping it longer than that.
Well, yeah, well, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. My son's getting married and we're having a meeting dinner tonight.
Thanks, Larry.
Next up is Natalie Chavez.
Hello, my name is Natalie Chavez, as you know. Thank you for listening to public comments this evening. As you know, I've been attending these meetings ever since I heard that Mount Baker School District will be incorporating the school-based health clinic here in this district. And as you know, I have huge concerns regarding this. I've given you all this handout in the past. When can a minor access healthcare without parental consent? I've also given you handouts regarding the SBHCs. Why should we be concerned about these school-based health centers? These are medical clinics in the school. I also informed you in the past that Merck is one of the funders of the School-Based Health Alliance. So that's a huge conflict of interest. And Merck is the maker of the Gardasil HPV vaccine, which is very much pushed at these SBHCs. I also told you in the past that there's a law firm, I say Wisnerbaum, it could be wisnerbaum.com. It's WISNERBAUM.com. And if you go onto their link into their practice areas and click on Gardasil lawsuit, you can read all the information about, and they have different points, and I'll just read off the points: Gardasil and cervical cancer, Gardasil deaths, Gardasil ingredients, Gardasil injury cases, Gardasil lawsuit, Gardasil side effects, how to file an HPV vaccine lawsuit, HPV vaccine, Merck, Gardasil clinical trials, and Merck Vioxx scandal. So you can read about all of that on their website. I also I said in the past that I would let you know about SDHC lawsuits. And so if I have time, I'll get through maybe one of them tonight and the next one at the next meeting. This one has to do with a school board in Connecticut. They had, and I actually have to find out if it's still ongoing, but since 2022, they've been under fire. Since March 2022, since they refused to sign a 5-year contract to install a federally funded school-based health center that would provide mental health services to minors without parental consent. Instead, the board contracted for a similar center, but with month-to-month terms and parental consent required for treatment, and without federal grants or the rules that they might impose. The board's rejection of the initial proposal that was approved by the superintendent led to the board and its members being slammed in local media, personally attacked, and subjected to a state investigation and a lawsuit. The vice chair at the time of the Board of Education shared the board's story regarding that issue. And the recent push by the US federal government to rapidly expand the use of SBHCs across the country, largely justified as an intervention into a mental health crisis among young people, has critics concerned that children will receive unnecessary or unwanted medical interventions without their parents' knowledge or consent. What's interesting is that the superintendent was the one that presented to the school board with one proposal that provided one possible service provider, the Generations Family Health Center, which explicitly provides services without parental consent. But many board members objected to that. The problem was never with providing mental health treatment. We recognize that post-COVID children really need help. The problem was with the parents never being informed that the child was going to be treated. She added, that was something that was important to us. The parent doesn't need to know what's being discussed, but they do need to know that the child has a problem and is being treated, and that they can actually keep a watchful eye on that child. The board voted down the SBHC and then the battle began. And so I'll touch base more about that issue and another issue regarding a different lawsuit regarding SBHCs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, thank you. Next up is comments from board. Danielle?
Just a brief comment. And I was reading in WASDA, the early bird registration is the 27th. So hopefully at the board, we can make that registration and help save the district a little money.
Yeah, I wrote a note to address that in our meeting schedule at the end of the meeting, so.
Perfect, thank you. That's all I have.
Ed?
No comments, looking forward to your presentations.
Jason?
Nothing, kind of just cool. I like driving home this time of year. Football teams are out practicing, the little guys are out practicing, volleyball's going on. Like Nick said, it seems like a real good positive atmosphere going on and I'm enjoying it and looking forward to the rest of the year. So that's all I got.
Thank you. I had a few things. First of all, I think we were all there for the Mount Baker School District all staff meeting, and I felt that there was great positive energy. I was actually quite pleased to get that. Enjoyed getting together with staff there, and it was a good start to the school year. I met with Chris Reckdahl, the superintendent of public instruction. Couple ongoing things, small school modernization grants, which he has moved, as Nick had pointed out to us at an earlier meeting, moved up to allocating grants up to a 3,000 student size. So we talked about, the benefit of that, plus it's WASDA is ready to help support that because WASDA at my urging, I think about, I don't think it was last year, it must have been 2 years ago, adopted a position supporting small school modernization grants up to 3,000 size and funding it with common school trust revenue. So that's our official position for WASDA. And so I said to Chris on that issue that WASDA is ready to lend our voice and to the extent that it's necessary, both to actually, I don't expect getting legislation to that effect to be an easy push. Getting funding to fund that level is actually currently been a bit easier than getting legislation. And I think funding gets you from year to year. The legislation sets up a program. And so ultimately you want the legislation, but we'll take the funding in the meantime, of which we're in that, I think, grant process now, and hopefully we'll get somewhere with that. The other thing we covered was the importance of state forest revenue to rural school districts, which Chris and I probably a little bit on the different sides there, but just making him aware how significant that is, and before voting to pause or against a timber sale that benefits the school district, realizing how important it is to our budget. So whether that gets one or two more sales, move this way or move that way, we'll see. But that was the purpose of that. I attended a Board of Natural Resources meeting and provided comments in favor of Mount Baker's. So usually I present or speak on behalf of WASDA, but this time I spoke just on behalf of Mount Baker School District on the Little Lily timber sale, which I also wrote SEPA comments with which Nick and I signed and sent in for the SEPA process is one of the steps in approval of the timber sale. And so it's kind of like the final step of approval before the sale can go to the Board of Natural Resources to be approved for auction. And so that was successfully completed. And so, barring, I'll get into some of the other pitfalls that may still exist later in the meeting, but that does get the process moved forward. And I think I also forwarded DNR background materials to each of you that from Chris Hankey to follow up on the meeting that he had with us, so that you can see, kind of what the upcoming sales are and just what the program looks like for the year. And so, and I'm, in our discussion with Chris, we fully intended to have the DNR provide us with those materials, whether on a quarterly basis or something of that nature, so that we can keep up on things and lend our voice where necessary. That's all I had. Presentations, we are fortunate to have Hazard Young at Dale Associates here, and I will let you come up and introduce yourselves. I did send their written presentation to the board in advance, so I hopefully you had a chance to read that, but thank you very much for coming.
We really appreciate the invitation to meet with you this evening, and Helene is passing around a hard copy. We weren't sure we were going to get the.
And also, I
presentation
will note,
Thank you so much.
I asked Nick, because he's a potential candidate to exit the room, and we'll, if you could be in your office,
Yeah.
we'll let you know.
Sounds good.
You can watch it on your office.
Thanks, Ed, I appreciate it.
We'll know.
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we currently have 4
Yeah,
people in this session.
Well, again, thank you very much for the opportunity to meet with you. We're honored and look forward to sharing a little bit about who we are, our company, and our team. Thank you very much. A little bit about our team and our process, our commitments to you, and how we can be of support to you. So just a little bit about who we are. And our third member of the team, John, could not join us tonight, but you can see the 3 of us are fully committed to support you throughout the process. I'm Chris, and just a little bit about my background, 43 years in public education in Washington, mostly up in the Northwest ESD region, actually. I was a superintendent for 17 years in 3 different districts, small, medium, and large, and then worked for Western Washington University for a long time as an adjunct professor, and I was the director of ed admin programs for a while, so supervising principal and superintendent interns, and it was just a great experience. Actually I was telling Helene on the drive up, at least 1 intern up here, so it's been a while since I've been out this way, but I've had a couple interns over the years out here, and it's just beautiful out here. Special community, obviously special school district. So in addition to that, after retiring, I've been doing searches and strategic planning and executive coaching and those sort of things through HYA for the last 4 years.
We also appreciated driving and seeing clearly kids who were finishing up with football practice on their way home. So that was pretty joyful for us as well. I'm Helene Para, newest associate, and can already attest to what HYA has to offer. As far as my career goes, began many moons ago, back in the 70s as a special education teacher. Went to work in New York State for a BOCES, which, if you closed your eyes, you would be at an educational service district, background in curriculum and staff development, as it was known then. When my family moved to Spokane, Washington, I went to work for ESD 101, which is based out of Spokane, serving 59 school districts in 7 counties. So both with urban as well as very rural communities. In 2014, made the move to Olympia, where I went to work for WASA, which is the School Administrators Association. I was an assistant executive director there. and retired a few years back, but as many of us go, you know, I love working in the field of education and have been doing a variety of things, and most recently with HYA. So pleased to be here with you.
We're thrilled she's joining our team. So just a little bit about HYA as well. We're a national search firm, which brings with it a lot of assets, but we also know how important it is that we are local. We know the region, we know the state, but we're really well connected and networked across the whole country. So if you haven't been to our HYA website, I encourage you to check that out too. We actually house all of the openings for superintendencies across the whole country, even those that we are not facilitating, so that it has become kind of the one-stop website for candidates who are searching for a new position. It's 25,000 hits a month kind of website, and people can sign up to be alerted for any openings that match with their qualifications, you know. So anyway, I worked for another firm when I first retired, and I was just truly drawn to HYA for their resources, their support for school systems, their professionalism. So again, proud member. Thank you.
So what I would love to do is to just give you a very, very broad picture now, and then we'll drill down more deeply into each of the phases of the search process, should you choose to go with HYA. The timeline that's up across the top will go back into and propose a timeline that is truly flexible, that meets your needs. But each search really goes through 4 phases that we'd be working alongside you, as well as John working alongside you. So first phase is the engagement phase. We come to understand really what you desire, what your community, students, staff, what you're looking for. And usually that part of the process would take about 3 or 4 weeks. And then after moving forward with understanding all of your needs and wants, then we go about recruitment, bringing in the widest range of candidates that would meet the requirements that you set forth. Here again, well, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but making use of HYA's website as well as other ones more specific to Washington State, and wanting to bring you a really broad range of candidates there. Usually that's the longer period, 6 to 8 weeks, where full recruitment, you as the board will determine the timeline that you want to see. And which point then we moved into the selection phase of the process, where we would help to facilitate or take the lead in facilitating a selection process for you to arrive at really what your best match is. We'd be with you all along the way there. And then the transition phase, which is the last phase, where once your candidate is selected, your new leader selected, moving into how do we support you and your new leader, and what all that might look like.
So we'd like to just share a little bit more detail about each of these 4 phases, if we could. Starting with how important engagement is. And you can see on this slide, again, really important initial planning meeting. We would love to get that scheduled just ASAP, assuming you would want to get underway. We do one-on-one interviews with the board members. We really think it's important that we just hear directly from you, get to know you as individuals and leaders of your community. And then the additional list of folks that we want to sit down with. And again, it was challenging for everyone during the pandemic, and certainly this phase was really challenging because we know how important personal connection is. We really prefer to do it in person, but we're also very flexible about how we meet with folks. I think the most important thing is that everyone feels like they had a voice to be heard. So we also believe in maximum, transparency and inclusiveness, all voices, that sort of thing. So whether it's a focus group or a forum, if it's one forum or 2, if it takes, different forms, we are just gonna be flexible, but again, the most important thing is that people felt like they had a voice. We also do a couple survey options so that again, people, if they can't attend a meeting, they certainly have a chance to weigh in on an electronic survey. So we can talk more about that. But all of this information, data gathering, themes that emerge, turns into that leadership profile report that's really unique, for Mount Baker. So it speaks to what people had to say about what's working well, what are the challenges and opportunities moving forward, and what characteristics are you looking for in your next leader? So that just gets right at it. That's a document where obviously the candidates are really interested to see that printed and available, because they're going to do some self-assessment, right? What is my skills and experience? Is that a good match for Mount Baker? And so that document, we try to, move it along as quickly as we can so that it's posted on your website, posted on HYA, becomes a really important anchor document. And then again, this is just an example of how flexible we really want to be to ensure that whatever it takes to make sure that all the voices are heard. So at that planning meeting, we would be working with all of you to help identify who are those groups in the community or who are those key communicators that need a personal touch, whatever it is, we'll develop that list. The examples obviously being in the bottom left there. So flexibility, all voices heard, this engagement phase is so important. We'd be ready to hit the ground running right away on that.
So after you make your decision and hopefully decide to engage with us, we move into a recruitment phase. You are really to be commended, and I am, because I'm new, learning all the pieces. You are in the first wave, which is a wonderful thing. And Chris has already talked about getting you on board and getting this going as quickly as possible, but thoughtfully, but quickly, because then almost immediately, and I've seen it a turnaround of a day or two where your position is announced. It is on WASDA's website, so school administrators. It is on WASDA's, school directors, HYAs, and any others that you might deem, I'm interested in such and such, and that we look toward spreading the word in those ways. So the active recruitment of candidates, there is that connection to this national network, which Chris was mentioning before. Then as your firm, we help guide candidates throughout the process, go through some pre-screening, some background reference checking up front, the initial phases of that, and then provide to you summaries of all completed applications, and then helping you out in identifying those candidates who might be best qualified for the role.
So during this select phase, again, you will be directing how this looks. This is your search, and we would be right by your side throughout. But typically it is 2 rounds, semifinalists and then finalists. Typically the first round is 6-7 candidates, 1 hour to 1.5 hour interviews, all in one day typically, right? If that's possible, that really helps facilitate sticking with a tight timeline. So from those semifinalists, well, let me back up. I wanted to just give you a sense of how we bring the candidates to you. So let's just say, for sake of conversation, that you might get 25 completed applications. Our firm really believes strongly that that the board sees all completed applications. We don't screen out and give you a slate to consider. We really want you to see all completed applications. And again, all the firms do that differently, but that's a core value of ours. But what we do help you with is, of those 25 candidates, with a spreadsheet summarizing for you at a glance, and giving you our professional opinion about where they might fall in a ranking, not necessarily a ranking, but a tiered system. So top tier are fully qualified, even exceed expectations. And then others who maybe meet most of the mark, but there might be a question or a gap in an experience. And then, of course, we've got tier 3 that might have red flags. They completed everything, but here's what we've uncovered. So that's how we would bring those candidates to you. Then you make the decision of which 6 or 7 you want to bring in for that first round, and help you narrow down the candidates from there. We help you with a bank of interview questions. We've been doing this long enough that we've got lots for you to choose from. We're going to tailor it to meet your needs. Those interview questions we also think are important to tie right back to your leadership profile report, right? Which characteristics are you looking for? Do you have enough interview questions, that get at that? And we're going to help you with that as well. So we're doing, background checks again at this stage, and then you're bringing in the top 3 usually, but it might be 4. It just depends on where that cut line. Sometimes it's 2, but we probably recommend 3 or 4 for finalists. And those finalist days in the district, in fact, I'm not sure how many of you have been a part of a superintendent search besides Russ. How many, Russ? And how many have you been through?
Oh, man. Let's see this. Probably, I'd have to, tell me how many, 4, you think?
I'll get 5 anyways.
4 or 5? So, okay, you know the
I've been
drill.
through 8.
I mean, we've been,
So, yeah.
our careers have overlapped
I've been in
here,
this
so.
district.
Tammy's got about a year or 2 more than me.
Tammy, you could have been doing this presentation. So, what those days in the district look like are really flexible. They can all be on one day, and we have a rotation process where, sometimes that's a benefit because it's less disruptive to the schools, for instance, and you can ensure that the same community members can see all 3 candidates, right? If they're on 3 different days, there's trade-offs no matter which way you go, but we will work with you on what makes the most sense for you.
Mhm.
So helping you get to the point where you're offering a contract, and that typical motion at this stage is that we would like to offer the contract contingent upon, right? 2 things, successful contract negotiations, and 2, possibly a thorough background check by a third party, if you so choose. So we can talk more about that, but that's how that motion would look at this time. And then that buys you a couple weeks to fine tune, finalize the contract, and then take final action.
So as I had mentioned, we give you a more of a tentative suggested timeline, but lots of flexibility in it. Very much based upon your needs. But if we followed that 3 to 4 weeks for this and 6 to 8 weeks for that, what we'd be looking at is once you make your decision, then a planning meeting with you, as had been mentioned by Chris. Then moving into engagement where we start holding interviews with different stakeholder groups, ensuring that we've heard from all voices, representative of your community, all including student voice as well. Gathering information, again, as Chris mentioned, surveys, focus groups, different forums that we can hold. Again, flexibility in time of day for those. We move into, again, mentioned before, posting the position as quickly as possible, accepting applications, vetting the candidates, so that by November, that leadership profile report would be presented. Then moving forward with presentation of candidates to you as the board and setting up an interview workshop with you. Did you want to mention more about the interview workshop itself, or just?
Yeah, maybe just real quick, that's typically, again, looking at interview questions. It's also talking a little bit about anti-bias, just a little bit of make sure everybody's on the same page about process, legal and illegal questions, just get us all grounded. So it's usually about an hour, hour and a half.
then early February with interviews. So moving from semifinalists, that group of 6, 7, down to who you identify as your finalists. By late February, selecting your new superintendent, entering into that period from March until June of those transition type activities with a July 1st contract start.
So as we said, to have your superintendent selected by the end of February puts you in a really great place. As far as opportunities for this new person, again, we're hearing that you may have an internal candidate, but if it's an outside candidate, they certainly, those months to be able to plan, to be in the district, to meet as many folks, to work with, to be out in the community, to be visible, has really paid dividends, right? It's just makes for such a much more smooth transition. Time with all of you, a couple workshops with you in that period of time would be huge, just to set the stage for July 1, you're just hitting the ground running. You've got clear goals, you've got measurable outcomes in mind, you've got a clear direction. So again, you're in a really good spot. So some of the transition activities, again, we offer this workshop as well. This is usually a half-day workshop. It's optional. It's just part of our, it's included in our fee, but it's optional for you. We've found that boards and the new superintendents have really appreciated that, having a third party, so to speak, but someone who knows you pretty well by then, right? We've been embedded in the community for several months by then. So the new superintendent can just participate with you and we can facilitate some of that, setting the groundwork and getting a strong foundation for board superintendent relations moving forward. We offer all kinds of other services if you had any interest, but that's for a later discussion. And then the fee, pretty straightforward. Love to see if you have any questions for us. Some of these additional kind of optional items are, again, our firm does it differently because some boards have said, you know, we may not want a full due diligence background check by a third party. We feel confident, for instance, that, you know, we're able to uncover enough through reference checking, and you know, Helene and John and I will be able to do quite a bit of research of our own on social media presence, et cetera, et cetera. But a third party check is, many boards really want that extra assurance, which gives you like a 40-page report that includes credit check, verification of degrees, you know, of course, all of the, any violations, any felonies, you know, the drill. So we can talk more about that later. That is an extra fee, $1,100-ish, and we've got that for you available in the appendix that was sent to you as well. So again, we don't charge for any meals, pretty straightforward. And then once that's locked in, it's locked in, and we don't revisit. It's a fixed price.
So then the question comes down, why choose us?
And because we brought them chocolate.
Oh, right, look in your folders, there's chocolate there. Additionally, and you know, and as I introduce myself, I'm really probably the newest associate
Across the country.
Across the country. And I can tell you from personally, so from that vantage point, but what I've seen so far and really why I wanted to get involved with HYA, and Chris mentioned some of those pieces because those are also extended to you. So the professionalism, the access to resources, not just here in Washington State, but across the country, the ability with firm grounding to then be able to customize and support you along the way. We will be upfront and transparent with you, you know, thinking about what Chris said about we bring to you all of the candidates. While looking at them in tiers, you still have full access to that information. And there is just this firm value and belief in all voices being heard and being honored in what they said, And those will ring true in the leadership profile report when we bring that to you. I can attest to the effect about that there's responsive, regular communication. I see emails at 7 in the morning, maybe, and that there's a lot of communication that goes on. And Chris will be talking more in a moment about this password protected board portal that you will have access to throughout the process, which I think is a wonderful benefit, an important benefit that you would get with HYA.
So you see that in your packet and on the screen. Of course, this is just a tool that we started just a year ago or so that has just been a one-stop, portal for board members only. Not only just as a repository for all of the artifacts that we're gathering together, you can see the examples of what might live in each of those sections of the portal. But you know that you can go back to one place if you had a question about, or you'd like to review minutes, or you would like to, kind of reframe what we did at the interview workshop, for instance. So again, all the artifacts that we've organized for you then would be posted in this one location. This is also the place where you would have access to all of the files. This is where we would upload, again, board members only. And when we talk about 25 candidates, each one we're asking to turn in 6 artifacts to apply. And that includes the online application. We use Frontline. They've got a very extensive online app. Of course, the resume, letter of application, and 3 letters of reference. So 6 items for every candidate. Turns into a lot of homework, but that's why we try to do our homework, summarize it for you, and we'll walk through it with you. But again, this is where you'll access all of those documents as well. We try to get that to you as soon as we can, in terms of when the position closes and when we're scheduled to meet to go over the list, give you as much time as we can for homework, but so that you come prepared. But again, just a tool for us. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from school boards regarding this tool. And again, we're just going to work really hard to exceed your expectations. We would love an opportunity to work with you. We know you're going through a tough transition. We've been a part of tough transitions in our careers, and but it's an exciting opportunity, isn't it, for a new beginning? I was so heartened to hear how your school year has gotten off to a great start, and that the staff is full of hope. So this process can be a hopeful process. There a lot of trepidation, but it's a hopeful process for a new beginning, and we would love to be a part of it. So we'd love to also answer any questions you might have for us. We're getting in with 2 minutes to spare. So any questions you might have for us?
Let's start with Danielle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're ready. Maybe first you could tell us a little bit about how your background that you told us about help you do this process well. I can imagine it in terms of, say, those tiers where you're ranking the candidates for us. Having been a superintendent, working in the MBSD and doing evaluation, I think I caught that piece. But can you translate that a little for folks who maybe aren't in and of that person?
I appreciate that question. Yeah, I think all of the stops along my journey personally in my career have all just been an asset to do this work. I mean, I'm really understanding school systems, small systems, medium and large, the challenges and the opportunities that those bring, having served as a teacher and a principal and, and a superintendent, but then having that incredible opportunity to work at the university level too, to understand where the candidates are coming from and how well have they been trained? Where are the gaps in their training? So I understand the standards and expectations for school and district leaders too, very well. And so I think that does bring a lot to the table, including our personnel work. I mean, no matter what cap we wore, we had to roll up our sleeves and do HR intense work. So I think those are assets we bring. Thank you.
Yeah, and what I would add to that, I think what I might bring to HYA is coming from the east side of the state, spending 18 years in the Spokane area, but throughout the 7 counties there, and who I got to know and how I got to know folks there. And then moving to WASA, which is a statewide organization. So when we talk about networking, and I'm not that far out of the field yet, so no, I know some people, but also having moved to Washington State from another part of the country, and who knows what that also can bring with connections that I might have. And certainly I echo the different kinds of positions I've held, the kinds of work that I've had to do along the way.
Thank you.
Yep. Or you probably, I should,
Nope, you can go around.
we can go around more than once.
Yeah.
All right. I just had a couple questions from the proposal. One of the notes had to do with analytics during the recruit phase. And just wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about that. It says how many views your job has received during a specific time period.
Yeah, it's again, another asset for our firm, not only just having a large back office, but we're also a sister company to ECRA, and they are an analytics company, and we're sister companies. So they're the ones who do data dashboards, and they help us with all of the analytics on the website, et cetera. So yeah, any day that we can just log on and see how many hits have we had on your posting, how many have obviously started their applications, where are we at any given moment, has been so beneficial. So that's why when we say regular communication, we envision kind of a weekly update to you, like, hey, we have 6 in the pipeline, and we've talked to 10 more, and we see that your job posting has had even 100+ hits, and it's amazing how much exposure that gets. So that's just one example.
Okay, yeah, it'd be helpful to see those.
Yeah.
types of things. Prepare and place advertisements as selected. So that is on your website, and you mentioned a few of the other ones as
Yeah.
well. Could you go over that part again?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So there are really 4 places where we would just post it immediately and kind of automatically, and that would be HYA, WASA, WASDA, and your school district's website. So those 4 are just a given, right? And oftentimes that's adequate exposure because, like I said, HYA alone has been the primary nationwide site for superintendent candidates. WASA and WASDA, if someone wants to work in Washington, they're watching those regularly. But again, there's some communities who really want to target, potential candidates of color, for instance. So we have connections with, the National Black School Educators Association. That's just an example. Those are really small additional fees, and we can talk details about that in a planning meeting if you had interest in targeting any other particular areas of the state, of the country, or any particular minority populations, special populations, options.
Okay. So that kind of leads into my next question. Identify the best qualified candidate. So outside of targeting minority, we're just saying, the most competent, high integrity. What differences are there between searching? Because it seems to me like everyone wants the best candidate, right?
Yes.
So.
That's a good one.
Best candidates may apply.
Right, like, so what other differences might there be between school districts in terms of
Yeah,
what they're looking for?
that's a great question. We'd say the best candidate, and that's where that leadership profile report really comes in, because, you know, that list of desired qualities and characteristics is different for every posting, every community.
Right,
So that's where we want to say best candidate who meets these things. We've got some recommendations for you to take a look at, what we'd recommend as minimum qualifications, and then some desired qualifications, but that's your call. Maybe some of that we put in desired, you'd say, nope, that's a required. So those become kind of screeners, but we've got lots of examples to share with you on that.
okay.
So, well, and I'm also thinking about, while there are some pieces that are, what community, what district might not ask for these qualities, or what your challenges might also be very specific to you. And so what you're looking for in your next leader, the nuances of the challenges that are in front of you would appear, I think, in the leadership profile. And then that helps us to make some decisions also about best qualifications.
I'm just curious, what percentage of applicants you've just seen in general have an educational background versus maybe a business background?
Oh, you know, that's a great question, because that would be one of the first things we'd want to talk about, is that you know, minimum qualification required. And I would say most districts do desire the educational background experience. Some of the larger districts have taken that off and put down in preferred, just to get the maximum number of applicants. So it's not very common still in the state of Washington, I have to say.
Right, okay.
So most are coming up through the chairs, and even superintendent certification, you know that it's not required in our state, you know, by law, but is it important to you?
Right.
Right, and a doctorate, is that important to you? So we could talk about all of that.
All right. We answered several questions. And could you go over the independent third-party due diligence? Sounds like a private investigator, something like that.
It basically is, and that's what I mentioned. You know, this one pager was in your, you know, addendum appendix
Yeah.
materials.
Oh, okay.
And so this is where they can go into much more depth than any of us have access to, even much deeper in social media access. Certainly a credit report, we're not going to run.
Right. Okay.
So those are the fees. And again, most districts, I would say, would choose this option for their top candidate. Some choose it for like the top 3, because they really want to kind of have that inform their
Okay.
final decision.
So that's a per candidate.
Per candidate, great question.
Okay. And there was also an option called research-based survey,
Mhm.
which is different from the other survey that's included in the fee.
Right.
Talk a little bit about what, maybe you already did. but-
No, we didn't get into details. We appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit more. And this would be what we talked through at the planning meeting. We'd say, okay, you've got 3 choices about a survey. One is just the simple Google form survey that is just part of our proposal. We use that a lot. We ask the same 3 questions that we do in our forums and focus groups on this basic survey. The research-based survey, again, there's just a 1-sheeter in your addendum appendix that it gives you a sense of, it is tied to research-based leadership qualities for superintendents. And then it gives us an opportunity to disaggregate all of that feedback, right? What did the students say? And it's just obviously much more data-driven than we would be able to do with just a Google survey.
Okay.
And what the driving force there, and which way you might want to go, often depends on, like, how many surveys have you done in the last, you know, several months? What's the status of your strategic plan, for instance? Is it ready for a renewal or not? If it's ready for a renewal, this might be a good foundation, you know, to add to. It could be a springboard into your strategic planning process. So it's, again, that's why we don't just prescribe for you one or the other.
Right.
Give you a chance to think about what's more important for you.
I was just curious on your references for Washington, new, is that like within the past year, within the past 3 years, or?
Yeah, this would be just in the last couple years.
Okay.
Our Washington searches only. We've done as search consultants, John and I have recently done a few out of state as well.
Okay. Okay, great. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just,
Yes, like what, not a shocking number, I guess, what would be a number of candidates you guys would feel like in this area as you came up here and seeing, like, what would 25 be a number, or is that a high number, or what's your thoughts on that?
Probably should have lowballed it instead of. You know, we are seeing, thankfully, the pools have been really strong the last few years, and we anticipate that to continue. We really do. There's, I think post-pandemic, we're starting to see people just start to breathe. Now what's my career path, you know? And so it's been interesting. I would be hopeful that we would get 25 completed applications. Again, of those,
Yeah.
how many would be
Yeah.
tier 1 or 2?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just, one more, we talked a little bit about community involvement and surveys and stuff, and like what, I guess, is for the people that are listening at home and out of this meeting, maybe explain the steps for the community involvement as far as, and through interview processes and that
Yes.
kind of stuff. What are you guys offering for that involvement?
Yes, thank you. Again, great question. We have multiple ways to engage, and the community at large, lots of opportunities. I mean, that's why we would identify focus groups if there's just natural groupings, whether it's a service club in your community or, you know, whatever it might be. We would want to do a personal outreach to them or a sit down with those groups based on what you recommend. Then we want to have an open forum, come one, come all, because all your voices count. And we want to have come one, come all to the survey.
Mhm.
So there's lots of those opportunities. But then what we want to make sure the community knows is that we highly recommend that you re-engage them when you are at your selection phase, right? I mean, typically, there's a high expectation for transparency and engagement and inclusivity, all that, right? So we'd recommend that we tell the community when we're meeting with them on the engagement part, stay tuned,
Mhm.
stay informed, and here's the way you can do that on your website. A dedicated place on your website is the best place to kind of keep the calendar, keep the documents. And we will re-engage you when we get to the selection phase, and here's the ways we'll do that, right? So when the finalists are in the district, there'll be multiple opportunities to meet the candidates. Usually a forum again in the evenings, meet and greet, share your feedback electronically. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
so, start with, what do you mean by non-solicitation of candidates?
Oh, yeah, that's like, well, we would not be going back to someone we just placed and recruiting them away from you to another position that is open. We promise. That has happened. And so obviously, you know, we want you to be successful. That transition phase, we are committed to you. We want to walk alongside you for that first year, really, to make sure that it's working well. If there's any coaching that might be of benefit, we're here for you. Is there any, you know, community follow-up we should do? We're here for you, that sort of thing. So, but we're certainly not going to be tapping candidates from a prior position, at least in the first 3 years.
Yes, I guess there's a kind of a gray area there in that you may have a number of potential candidates that have never announced that they're looking, but you know they've talked about it.
Yeah.
And so how do you handle the challenge of a current superintendent announcing to their community that they're looking for another job?
That's
What,
why,
what do you, what do you do with that?
yeah, I mean, again, great point. We really believe strongly that the process should remain confidential through the semifinalist phase.
Mhm.
You're gonna get your best pool of candidates that way. So, you can avoid, really cutting any relationships from your current community, right? Most superintendent contracts require that you tell the board you're applying, but, you wanna, preserve, if I'm not gonna be a finalist, could I preserve that relationship? So, yeah, we do work with that carefully.
Let's see, what percentage of tier one applicants for a job in a district like Mount Baker? So we're 1,500 students, more or less. And I would say one of the more probably I would say the most desirable place in the nation, let alone the state. But that's
Did you
just
write
my.
that down?
And I've driven around the country many
I
times, so
know.
I know. So what percentage of tier one applicants are current superintendents, and what percentage are assistant superintendents or other admin folks that are looking to move up in a district like this?
Yes, and again, we can just give you our recent experience as an example. Again, whether it says, superintendent experience required is a big factor, but typically it would be superintendent experience preferred.
Mhm.
So our pools have probably had a third to a half that are experienced soups, and I'm not thinking there's a distinction in size of district necessarily there off the top of my head, just to give you a general idea.
And on the fee structure that so included the 4 on-site associate days, it's trying in my mind to kind of think. So you come here at one time, or whether it's in person or Zoom, I don't know, meet with the board. And then there's meeting with staff and meeting with community. So how do these fit how do they translate into days?
Yeah.
The different functions, I should say.
Right. And, we really should clarify that. We intend that to mean the days dedicated to engagement. So outside of that, like the planning meeting and the interview days on site are in addition to.
Okay, so these are for community and staff engagement?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, what's worked well in other places is, for instance, that we all come, 2 of us or all 3 of us, we're not sure yet, would be on site for even at back-to-back days. And then we have a forum in the evening. We might need to stay overnight somewhere. I'm in Marysville. Helene is in Mukilteo. So it's not too far, but just to give you a general idea that we can really knock out full engagement if we have lots of logistics. I'm looking for some backup over there. We've been able to do that in just 2 days within forums and meetings throughout the day, et cetera.
And then, so looking at the recruiting phase, talk about your Washington State networking process. What your like your stable of candidates.
Well, maybe you jump into Helene, but kind of think that's also sets us apart. Not to say anything about your next firm you'll be interviewing, but we don't have a stable. And we really, really believe strongly that we're matching candidates that we may know of or that we're using our network to go find based on what you said your needs were. And not just, putting forward the same group of individuals over and over. But we're well networked across the state, as you heard, and of course, our associates across the country. Once your leadership profile report's ready, we can just push that out to 135 people around the country that said, great, best place in the country to come and work. Help us find, the best candidate based on these needs. So lots of networking opportunities. But Helene, of course, with your ESD and WASA as well.
People, once you post, people will also reach out to us. And that also it's that's additive along the way.
Danielle, you're good.
Okay. In that process of candidates reaching out to you or sending our profile out to your wider nationwide network, what role do you all play in selling Mount Baker to candidates? I'm assuming that we can support you in that by telling you about us and what we think is special and unique
Yes.
about our district. But what role do you guys play in doing that work?
Yeah, we will collaborate with you for what the position announcement says, so that there's just a great chance for you to sell the district, sell the community in these opening paragraphs. That's a really important document, right? But in addition to that, you might remember we said in our initial screening, we want to meet with every one of those completed applicants ourselves too. We'll do a Zoom with each one of them to make sure that they are clear about the incredible assets and opportunities of Mount Baker. And by then we'll know you pretty well. And so we can really speak to it. And that's with a personal, at least a personal touch, and answer any questions they might have. That has gone a long way. They're going to have questions about, finances and how's the board and, so we do that personal face-to-face.
Especially if someone's from another
Across
part
the
of the
country.
and
Yeah,
they're
sure.
moving their family and their lives.
Exactly.
That you guys being that face for us in that conversation is really essential
Exactly.
to get people to take that leap of faith.
Exactly.
Some of the photos you may choose, whether on the announcement itself or on your website or what gets translated there, photos tell a story, which I think and or how you would portray it and convey other information.
Any further questions? So thank you so much. And our decision-making process, we're gonna hold board discussion later in this meeting about the position, search position. And then we intend to choose our search consultant at our next meeting, which is September 26th.
Okay.
And we chose that to give chance for staff and public who may be
Okay.
watching or looking at our recording of our
Right.
meeting, a chance to contact us or speak at the next meeting prior to. this.
Understand.
So
Yeah.
that's
Wonderful to
where
meet
we're at.
all of you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for coming.
Thank you
So
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 much.
expect to hear
Okay.
from us on the 20th.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I'll give a couple minutes break here and then we'll look for our next.
Take a little break.
Yeah, I think we're going to kind of transition to our next presentation.
Since you've been through 8 of them, have you done a search like that before with all 8 or any of them?
I've not done this section.
You've paid for to have another outfit do it, like you've actually paid
not-
thousands of dollars to do it?
Not all of them. So some of them were interns. that we've had. Yeah.
Wow. Well, they might want feedback from you, figuring out like, you know, using an outfit for thousands of dollars for search. Beneficial did you see it? Do you know what I mean? Versus, you know what I'm saying? Because it just, yeah, it just seems like for $100 or less, you could do a credit check, background check extension, right? Why 1,100, you know what I mean? Like, and then, you know, you could still do the 6 artifacts and still get the cover resume, you know, like there's part of me is like, wow, they could look at the folder and give someone $5,000 and they could do all of these things or some of, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like part of it is like, oh, it's so much fun. And then it just, and then it kind of, and then like, what if you end up paying? You know,
Yeah.
and then you know.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just, it's a lot, but then again, it's like, just let it go and just have someone take care of it is also a huge burden,
It's huge, yeah.
you know? There's like this pros and cons.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'll wait till Danielle gets back before we begin.
Hi there.
Hi, how we doing?
Good.
How are you?
Hi, Ed.
Jason, Mark Ben.
How you doing, Mark? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Just a community member. Yeah.
Not just.
Attending community.
Jason Logan.
Hi, Jason.
Wayne Roberts.
Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hi,
Good to see you.
Laurel.
Outstanding.
Hi.
Nice
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, and yeah. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I'll leave you my card. So who has the racetrack?
Me, yeah.
I was with your folks the other day at Raleigh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was saying. Yeah,
That's okay.
that's okay. That's okay.
Mark, our other member is Danielle Gray. You may remember Lorelei Gray.
That's what I
was just saying.
Nice to meet you. I think I did. Her mother.
Would you say hi to your mom for me?
I would be happy to.
Cause she was at BSD too, and I'm on the BSD board. So, yeah. I enjoyed working.
For your collection. Okay, thank you, sir.
Just in case, so you know who I am.
Thank you.
Where do you live?
Actually, Bellingham.
Oh, you going?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
good.
If you wanna put me on your Christmas card list or something like that. Russ, you probably have one of these
Yeah, down in my, I've
at
got
the
a
bottom of your
pile of-
stack.
I keep track of all my files like an archaeologist, you know, but which layer is on top.
Here comes the train.
I was a suit for 15 and you were with Bill and me.
Yeah.
This is
That's
25, 24?
On the board, 20, well, past 24, so working my way towards 25.
And a couple of years ago.
1 year,
Oh.
a year and a half.
And I just. Yeah.
Uh,
New word,
Brenda.
my word file.
Okay, I don't know why she was-
13, 15 years.
Yeah, well, I remember when Burlington, when Bill Wallace was the only board member there, and he had only 1 year experience.
Sounds like a red sign. Yeah. That was fun for me.
Yeah. Was that when you were first hired? So,
I had 1 year of a board.
yeah,
It had great pizza.
yeah, that was, fortunately, Bill is a highly competent, real gentleman.
Good people after that. Solid.
So will you advance it, Tamara? You
No,
want us to?
you will do it, yeah, right there, so. You're on the screen, you're sharing, so.
Is it a touch screen?
No,
Right arrow to advance the slides, right?
you should be able to just click on it, yeah.
Right arrow.
No. Oh, this arrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
you guys awake? Okay. You sure? You got a long meeting. You got a long meeting. Well, we're not gonna be too long unless you have a lot of questions, but, first of all, my name's Mark Finn. This is Laurel Browning, this is Wayne Robertson, and we're here representing Northwest Leadership Associates. And, you should have a copy of our, proposal. And, hopefully you've had a chance to look at it and you can kind of see what it entails and what it involves. And, it's, pretty thorough. It involves a lot of input from your community. It's pretty transparent. And we're pretty proud of our organization. Our organization's been around for 20 years. Wayne and I have been doing this for over 10 years, probably close to 45 searches we've done together or participated in. And then Laurel's come on with us the last 2 years. And I was a former superintendent in Cedar Woolley. Prior to that, I was the assistant superintendent in Mount Baker. And prior to that, I was a high school principal in Nooksack. So my career, I spent a lot of my career in Whatcom County and that. And Laurel was a former superintendent at Burlington Edison. She's was there for many years as not only as a superintendent, but also as an assistant superintendent. And moved in, she was a principal there too, right?
Yep.
K-8 principal there, and started her career in Snoqualmie Valley down by North Bend Elementary, where my nieces went to school actually. And Wayne, he's been around. But he's a former superintendent in the Edmond School District, the Lakewood School District, and the Conway School District, and he currently is also on the faculty at Western Washington University for their superintendent program and their doctorate program, which he's really helped get that going. I'm currently on the MBSD-Board. I've been on the board for about 10 years, so certainly we know your district pretty well. I think we know your district very well, and we certainly would like to work with you. We've worked with you before and with a different board except for us, and we had a great experience. And I've always personally had a soft spot in my heart for Mount Baker. Had a great experience here, working 3 years and working with some really good people. And being on the ESD board, I know some of the challenges that you have right now, that you're going through right now with the binding conditions and that sort of thing. But what we're being told, what we fall in your situation, it looks like it's not going to be forever. So I think that's a real positive when we go out for a search here, is that candidates want to know, where they go. Are you going in the direction of Marysville, or are you getting out of this binding conditions? And I've been assured that you guys are on the right track. I know you had Phil Brockman in here working with you, and he's actually the person that took my place when I retired at Cedar Woolley. And he was very positive, talking to Phil, positive about the work you've done, about some of the sacrifices you've made with and working with your bargaining units and that sort of thing to do that. So anything to add about that, about us? Our firm is well known not only in the state of Washington, but it's well known nationally. I want to mention that any search that's being done nowadays is a national search. It's not just Washington. It's not just Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Alaska. It's a national search. And when we do a search, we are pretty aggressive, and we go out and we actively recruit. And we have a large catalog of names of people that we've connected with before, but also when we post jobs, it goes out across the country, and it's all across the country. So we've kind of divided this up tonight, and what we're going to do is talk a little bit more about Northwest Leadership Associates.
Help us out, Tammy.
Come on, Tammy. Things haven't changed, have they?
This is what I have.
So this is it?
You know it's serious when Tammy grabs her glasses.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. So can we go to the next one? Well, that's kind of the agenda, what we'll cover.
All
Okay,
right.
okay,
Okay,
good.
I'm gonna take the
Good.
next.
Wayne's
couple
gonna take the
slides.
next part and
Well,
we'll.
Mark hit some of this and I'll probably repeat some of it, but maybe drill a little deeper. So Northwest Leadership, been around over 20 years. I think in the proposal it said 22 years. And founded by Dennis Ray. Dennis is kind of the superintendent search emeritus person in the state of Washington, former WASA president, superintendent of North Shore School District, and really a mentor for a lot of school leaders that are very active in the state and very well connected. So Dennis is a person that we really look up to and widely known across the state. If you look at last year's superintendent searches, Northwest Leadership probably did about 2/3 of them in the state of Washington. We have a dozen or so retired superintendents that are our cadre of consultants. Dennis is our president and CEO, and another fellow named Tom Rockefeller, who's a retired superintendent, is our COO, Chief Operating Officer. Tom's a former superintendent in Meade School District. We're all retired. We're all former superintendents. Laurel most recently retired, obviously. But what we have and what we bring to kind of districts we work with is a statewide network of people. So it really benefits a lot. If Mark and I and Laurel are kind of working our ESD, we venture out a little bit to the Kitsap Peninsula and maybe a little bit to King County, but mostly our ESD. And you just check off the districts in the ESD in the last 10 years that Mark and I have been working together. We've done most of the searches in this region. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little more specifically. The company has done over 380 searches, and we've done many districts multiple times, hopefully not 2 years apart. Obviously, we don't like to come back. We like to come back, but not too soon. So we tell people when we leave. And we're hoping that our superintendents that we place will stay 5-10 years. National average is 3 or 4. And post-COVID, it's probably more 3 than 4. But we tell candidates that if you're coming to a district, you better plan on staying 5 to 7 years. So that's the expectation going in, and then it's to be determined, kind of depending on how things go. And we've got a pretty good track record with that. We've had some long-term placements that we're very proud of, where people have stayed a long time and served their district and their communities very well. We've done real well in Whatcom County. You know that we were here in 2017 when Mary Seawright was hired. That was a very successful search. We felt really good about it, and we enjoyed, as Mark said, we enjoyed working with the board. Mark had so much experience in this district, and I was kind of new to the Deming community and your other communities, Acme and the others. But Mark showed me all the schools and all the little communities and a couple of restaurants that I never would have found on my own. So that was fun, getting to know your community a little bit. In Whatcom County, the next slide, I don't advance it yet, but I want to talk a little bit more about that. But in Whatcom County and kind of the region, we most recently have done Ferndale and Linden. We helped a little bit with Mount Baker when their superintendent was selected. Excuse me, with Meridian. And then obviously we did the Mount Baker search in 2017. If you get out to your other neighbors, and we're talking about Skagit County, I think we've done all the districts in Skagit County, and most recently Cedar-Woolley and Mount Vernon. We've recently done Anacortes. So if you want to check references, you don't have to make too many long distance phone calls. We've served your neighbors, and we think we've served them pretty well. And we look forward to continuing that kind kind of that work that we've done in Whatcom and Skagit County. We've done a lot of, many of the districts in Snohomish County as well. And we would encourage you to check references and call any of those board members. We don't have to screen them or select any, just any searches that we've done. We got a pretty good list of the searches that we've done. So Mark introduced your team. We always have more than one consultant on a search because you just have schedule conflicts. And we want to be where you're not wondering, where your search team is. You can always get a hold of us. Mark will probably be the lead consultant on this search. He's kind of the first point of contact, and he and Laurel are both right close by. I live in Snohomish County. I live in Marysville, so none of us are very far away. We're all well established in the CSD, but we want you to know that somebody will always be available. The reason we have multiple people is, we've got travel responsibilities and other responsibilities, and so if Mark's traveling or Laurel's traveling or I'm traveling, somebody else will pick it up, and you'll always have somebody to get back to you. And we, it's not next day response, it's right away response. Text messages, phone calls, you've already seen that we've got our cell phone numbers, and I think Russ can probably attest to how responsive we were on the last search. And that's our signature. That's what we want to do, and that's how we want to be. So responsive, reliable, available, that's your team. And we look forward to helping you select your next superintendent, and just want to be part of the effort. So I think Mark and Laurel, I've kind of covered the next slide, talking about Whatcom County and Skagit and some related areas. I think Mark and Laurel are going to cover the process and the timeline and let you know what you can expect from us if we're selected to do your search.
So part of the process and timeline, we sent you a packet, and we're here tonight in September 4th, and then over the next month, we would work with you to decide what timeline you wanted. We proposed a timeline A and a timeline B, and in that timeline, there's lots of flexibility, but we chunk out all the activities so that we can stay on course, so that we meet your expectations for the hiring timeline. So we would work with you to just determine you want A or B on that, and then we'd move forward from there. And moving forward from there, we would be taking a look at community engagement. That would be your next step, and forming a good communication system, communication team, point person in your district, point person with us, board president, however you want to determine that. And we have lots of activities we do to make sure that staff and community are engaged. So we start with working with you. What are you looking for? We bring in our team, and we sit with your entire district and your community. So we set up focus groups, and we spend a whole day in your district, and you determine who you'd like us to meet with: students, staff, community. We have a community night, principals, any group, cabinet, classified. We set up a whole schedule so that your community has a point and place to engage in the process of what they believe is going well in the district. What are they looking for? What are their hopes and dreams? And then what are they looking for in the next superintendent? And those focus groups, we gather that information, and that's really important. And we meet with each of you too as well. And we take all that information, and that drives your brochure. That drives the key point of communication for our posting. Kind of coupled along with that posting, you would be approving that, and those renditions go back and forth. And we have a parallel path of a survey that goes to your entire community. So they have another place of input. That also, that feedback comes back to you. We can come back and give you a preliminary report of all the feedback that we've received for the focus group. We do a summary for you after that full day, and then we have the survey results are also given to you. We have them in real time, or you can have them just collected. So all of that feeds to the brochure that leads to the posting.
And kind of in a parallel track in there, as a board, you're gonna wanna be thinking about the superintendent contract itself. You know, those components, what's in place now, pulling contracts from maybe surrounding areas. You usually call the ESD, you can call the ESD of a point person, do that and kind of see what the competent, excuse me, the competitive rates are and some of those other components, and you have that in the parallel track. So when we do go out and post the brochure, it's posted on your website, of course, and we would create establish a place on your website. This is what we've done in other districts, is just superintendent search. It has the outline, the timeline. It really helps with transparency so people can see where they can engage and they can kind of know what's coming next. And that's where the brochure goes there. And then we post that brochure everywhere. That posting gets posted all across this state and nationwide. And we do all the formal places, WASDA, WASA, you know, we can do AASA, all the places that you would be looking for work. But we're pretty thorough with all of that. And all the way along, we touch base with you at your board meetings in between. We are open to everything from, if you just want to call to, we do Zooms, whatever you need to feel like you're staying up to date, it's current. But yeah, you'll need to have, you know, a place on your website because that really helps us when we start recruiting.
Good, let's advance the slide. Okay. This one here. Where's it? Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
All right, so Laurel just covered a lot of the upfront work. Part of our job is to make your job easier as a board. And we tell boards that you'll do work up front. Like Laurel was talking about, until we get the brochure put together and we have what the timeline looks like, when it's going to close and all that. And then we go to work and you don't do anything. We do a mid-search report that we would all come in, or at least a few of us would come in and tell you basically not who's applying, but give you some numbers, give you an idea of the diversity of the pool, what it looks like in terms of who has a doctorate, who is well, gender, male or female, who is a current superintendent, and you will get current superintendents applying for your job. We can pretty much guarantee that. We've already been approached by a couple of people that are current supes that have expressed interest in the Mount Baker superintendents. So how many people are there? How many are out of state? How many are in state? How many are overseas? We always have overseas candidates. We have a lot of candidates that are trying to get back into the American system after being in the international system. So that mid-search report gives you that information. But what happens when we get going here is that the three of us are going to do some very strategic, active, aggressive recruiting. We're not going to just post it and put it on the WASDA website, the WASA, across the Wallace. We now put it on the Latin administrators, Latinx administrators website. But all of those websites, including our own website, we reach out, we'll get some people, but we have a list probably of 60 people that we will personally contact and reach out to. And when we do that, sometimes people have to be told that they're ready to be a supe, or have to be told that this would be a good position to be in. And well, before we do this, so we've gone through all this prior work up front and reported to you and put this brochure together and done that. So as we recruit, as applications come in, they come into us, to our team, and you don't see them until the very end. But we do vetting as they come in. And we don't just call the people that are on their applications or on their letter of reference, whatever. We dig deeper because we do have a lot of contacts with a lot of different people, not only throughout the state, but throughout the United States from doing a large number of searches. So we vet, we do reference checks, we do that report to the board. And once we start that mid-search piece, which is probably be, depending on how we choose to go, probably December or January, you'd have a pretty good idea of what the interest is out there in what we're doing. So we start prepping for the interview phase, and then just in January, say it closed in January, we would come back to you after it closed about a week later, and we would have a breakdown in all the candidates that have applied. What we do is we will rank them if you want. Most boards want that, but we rank them in 3 areas. These are A, B, or C candidates. The C, we just don't think they're qualified, or for a variety of reasons may not be ready to be a superintendent at Mount Baker. A B is maybe kind of on the line, and a C or an A is we think you need to interview these people. And usually out of that, the board will come up with 5 or 6 that they want to do preliminary interviews with. And that's usually done on a Saturday, probably in this room like we did before. And it's open to the public. It's transparent and open to the public. And after you interview each one, you'll ask each one the same questions. We'll help you with the questions, putting questions together. You'll ask each person the same questions, about 45, 50-minute interviews. After that's all done, we meet with you in executive session, and you'll decide who you're going to bring in as a finalist. And usually the next week, there's usually at least 2, 3 finalists. Each finalist spends a day in the district, and it's a full day. They go from like 7:30 in the morning all the way to a final community meeting, and then an interview with the board, usually at 8 o'clock at night. So, which is kind of a normal day for a superintendent. It's a full day, but it's pretty inclusive. It's pretty exact. The board will get a chance in that final interview to pretty much ask within reason, within legal reason, anything they want. So you don't have to ask each candidate the same question. So we go through that. There's usually a dinner with the board each candidate has. I think we did this last time, but you don't have to do it. We invited their spouses to come in if they had a spouse or a partner, and they came in and we provided dinner. I don't know where you go now, Tammy, but I think it was your food service you did.
Yeah, food service.
Yeah.
They went all out to impress their future boss.
Well, actually, they did a good job. If I remember, it was really good food. Not to say that would happen again, but but anyhow, after it closes, then we get the semifinalists, we interview, we get the finalists probably within February with preliminary interviews. Once you select the finalists, we have an outside firm that does a third-party background check on their finances, hopefully no criminal record at all, on their resumes to make sure what they say they are and what they say they're doing. And then on their online presence, make sure that they aren't doing things on Facebook or Instagram or anything that will put your district in a bad position and with that too. So we want to make sure that's out there. And then before it closes, you will have done the contract. Each candidate knows what the contract will be, so there's no last minute haggling. So this is their contract, this is what you're gonna get. If they accept it, which they will most of the time, then there's an announcement. You would go into executive session after the third one. Probably the next day, you would do an announcement that go out to your district first and then go out to your community after that. So then the next board meeting, you would take action on their contract. And then after that time, you would have a new superintendent. So usually in March through June till they start on July 1st, that's a transition time. And that's a good time for them to come into your district, spend time with leadership people and spend time just observing, getting out to places like Acme and Mosquito Lake, all those places, so they can hit the ground running on July 1st and get going with that. They really don't start work until July 1st. But we want to encourage them to come in. You would want them to come in and spend time in the district and familiarize themselves. You have a unique district. You really do. I love my time here, but I look back upon it and you're really, your communities that you have, south and part of Bellingham and all the way up to Kendall and Maple Falls and Glacier. I was here when Maple Falls Elementary got torn down. So that, you know, there's been some change here and of course, Acme is still there. I took a drive out there the other day and saw Acme Elementary
My
still.
student taught.
And she's student. Well, good. No wonder it's such a good school. So anyhow, that whole transition takes place in March through June, and in July, a new superintendent comes in. So what did I forget? Wayne or Laurel?
I just got a couple of things, to get most of it. I think it's really important that we don't just bring, when the position closes, we do the vetting, we do the screening, we do reference checks, we do all of that. We put together a summary of our notes, but we make all of the applications available to you. We don't just bring you the top 10 or the top 6 or anything like that. So you'll have a couple of days before that screening meeting to read through as much as you want, to pick your when you pick your semifinalists. So we don't tell you who to interview or who to hire. We share the information that we have so that you're in the best position to make the decisions that you have to make. So I think that's an important feature because that's not what happens with every search. So anyway, total transparency, no surprise.
And you'll have a lot of, if you choose to go with focus groups, and it's up to you, we can talk about that if you want. Because we've had districts that haven't done that. We've had districts that haven't been, when they did the semifinalists, they did it in an executive session. You don't have to do it this way, and we're flexible. We're flexible. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we can maybe be flexible with the cost too, because I know you're very conscious of that going forward. But you'll have a lot of information. You'll have the information with the focus group report. We'll do at least meet with somebody, with you and others maybe. And then the information off the survey, the community survey, we need to really publicize that. But we usually close it down about a week before the job closes. So you have a chance to read that too. So a lot of your decisions, what we'll keep reminding you, your decisions on who you move forward and your decisions are based on what the community input is and based on what your input was when we put the brochure together and then what you're hearing from the community. And it's really, nobody should be able to come up to you afterwards and say, gee, Edward, I didn't have a chance to participate in this process. And you'd say, no, there were there's actually would be 4 or 5 ways that they could be involved in this whole process. And, you know, some could even be involved more than that. But anyhow, our searches are pretty open. But some boards have chosen to go other directions. I did a search in Ellensburg last year where they wanted to do everything in executive session as far as the semifinalists and the finalists were all done in executive session.
Only?
Yes. And they didn't want to do the focus groups except to meet with them. So the only focus groups we did was I met individually with each board member, and then we did the brochure, got the brochure out, and then they went to everybody. So you differently, they saved some money by doing it that way, but it wasn't, you know, in our the way we do things, that wasn't really.
You know your community.
Yeah,
You know,
you do.
would know.
And I think I know your community a
Yeah.
little bit, but that was one community's choice, one board's choice on how to do it. They had their reasons. They had their reasons. They'd gone through a lot of turmoil and they were very worried about some vocal people coming into the focus groups and that would really upset the apple cart.
Mhm.
So they had their reasons, but the other part of it is not, in our opinion, it's not transparent like we'd like to see it.
Yeah, I think in Granite Falls, they did both. They had for their initial interviews, the six, they did an executive session, but then the final three was open.
Yeah. So there's different, and more flexible, we're gonna meet your needs, what you want to do. So, anything else from what we need to cover here?
The last thing about Northwest Leadership follow-up, once the superintendent is announced, we stay with them. We're invested in the success of the superintendent. And so we check in with them, we check in with the board president or whoever our contact people is. We kind of want to know if there's a need for anything that we need to do, or if there's any questions or any resources that need to be made available. So we don't just adios, we're done and move on. So, yeah.
So if we can't find a candidate that you want, or the candidate doesn't last at least 2 years, we will come back and do another search at no cost. So, the next slide coming up is with that, but, we have a 2-year guarantee, but we also, part of our proposal, if you read our proposal, is we're, open to doing a board new superintendent workshop and establishing, here's how we do work together, here's what we do for that. And the ESD can help you with that too, but we offer that as a service that we can provide and do that. So what we talked about here is a full-blown search. And so the total cost of a full-blown search with 3 of us doing it would be $17,500. And how do we determine that? We go based on basically on the size of your community and also on the socioeconomic area that you live in the state, in the county, and the ESD with that. I think when we did Granite Falls, which is a bigger district than this, is about at least, I think it was close to 2,000 more than this.
Yeah.
So it kind of puts you in an area where we feel that for the time and the effort and the work we put in, you get a good bang for your buck. But if you chose, I'll throw this out, if you chose to say, okay, we don't want to do focus group work, we could cut a couple thousand off of that. We've done that before. So there are some options to reduce the cost. It would mean we'd have to do less work, which is, our time is invested too, but we could be flexible that way too, if you wanted to do it that way. Or we could do a hybrid model.
I think another area where we could maybe streamline it a little bit is, since it hasn't been that long ago since you did a brochure. So the description of the community, probably the attributes you're looking for. I mean, you still want to do something to make sure that you're listening to your community, but you've kind of got a rough draft of the brochure done. So we might be able to a few $100s off that. We outsource the desktop publishing with another person, so some cost to the company of doing that. So if we could streamline that a little bit, we could pass a little bit of savings. I don't think it'd be huge, but it might be worth talking about.
So you're going to have to kind of decide what about Baker. And I'm not going to say community; it's communities.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get the people in the South Fork Valley, you get people in the Deming area. You've got different communities and you know what their needs are. And I know when we did this 7 years ago, it was there was a real need to get as much input as we could. And we actually had, and Russ can verify this, we had good participation.
Yeah.
We had good,
You would again.
and I think you would again too. I think you would again, and you'd have good participation. I mean, you just passed a levy, you gotta feel good about that. I mean, there's some real positive things going on here. I mean, the binding conditions is unfortunate, it's hanging over your head a little bit, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train. It's real light at the end of the tunnel that you're gonna be able to work out. And I think as a board, you should feel good about that you're moving the district forward and making it an attractive district to come into. Your enrollment hasn't done well. So, one of the things I'm sure you're going to want in a new superintendent is somebody's going to come in and say, okay, how are we going to attract more people, more families to come into our district? And the challenge I see you have, there's not a lot of construction going on here. So I know when I was here, they were building and we're up at Kendall, they were just going bonkers up there, and that's kind of dried up a little bit. So how are we gonna do that? How are you, a new superintendent's would make a big, have a big impact on that. And your staff morale, and it's just the whole picture. I think there's a culture here where people that are in Mount Baker, that you went through school here. There's a real connection to this community that you don't often see in a lot of communities. And people are very loyal and very committed to Mount Baker. And
one of the other things that happens during a superintendent search, it's kind of a time for the district to reset, take a kind of look at how things are going. What might we do differently? Got some new leadership coming in, all of that. It's a huge professional development activity for the board, because you get a lot of time to talk about leadership and governance and policy and direction and, strategic thinking. And all of these conversations help you come together as a board. And so that by the time you've had all these conversations, you've done all these activities, you've heard from your community, you move through a process, a very systematic process to make your selection of your superintendent. You're really gonna be ready to welcome that superintendent in as part of your leadership team. And it really has a lot of maybe unintended benefits that we've seen boards, start out at the front end, they're kind of trying to figure out who's on first, and by the end of it, they've got a pretty coherent outlook on life. So it's kind of fun to watch. I think you'd enjoy the process. You'd enjoy working with us. I know we'd enjoy working with you. We would look forward to being part of your team to get you through this search.
definitely. And boards do become better boards out of this process. They become a bit from the time right now to the time you finish the search, you will be a better board because you have to reach consensus. You have to collaborate. You don't vote on the whole process. There's only one vote you ever take. And that's at the very end, when you come out of public meeting and announce who your new superintendent's going to be. And you do what's called a roll call vote. And that's when you vote. Up until then, like Wayne was saying, you have to work together. You have to collaborate together. You have to move this process forward, and you have to reach agreement. And there's going to be differences of opinion at times too. But that's the beauty of this, is you come out of this with a consensus, and what you come out of it is a better board. So I think we have one last slide, don't we?
It's just a
Thank
thank you slide.
Thank you, and any questions?
Yeah.
Questions?
Thank you very much. I'll start with you this time, Jason. Questions?
Yeah, a lot of it was answered. The big thing, for me and moving forward when we get here, the community does want to be very involved. We've heard that, throughout the whole start of this. When Phil came, they were very involved when he came and interviewed. And, you guys touched on a little bit more, but just maybe once again for the people watching and listening on the computer, what involvement the community is going to be invited to. I know a lot of it will be our decision with is if we do executive sessions and whatnot, but what the options are for the community.
Yeah.
Well, on the front end, you've got the focus groups and you've got the online survey. Those are two very visible components of community engagement. Individual meetings with board members. And if you say, I wish we had a chance to meet with maybe some, I don't know, this community group or service club or something like that, we can incorporate that into the process. That can be basically either our own focus group or it could be rolled into the community focus group. So it can kind of be whatever you want it to be. And we've had the size district, I think I'm thinking of Granite Falls, over 200 people hits on the online survey and 90, maybe 100 people participating in the focus groups. A little bit of duplication because some people are teachers and they're also a parent, that kind of thing. And they can participate more than once. A lot of participation from your labor groups. They're a pretty big player in all of this. And we can include them as a separate focus group. We can meet with them privately, we can be available. And the other thing we do is we tell people if they, for some reason, they don't want to they're not able to participate, we tell the board, whoever the contact person is, give them our phone number. We'll just spend some time with them. You know, if you've got some loud voices that you need some time and attention, we've done that. So it can be almost whatever you want it to be. We like to do the focus groups and one day kind of have it be compact so that we can then turn right around, summarize it, and get the focus group report ready for you at the next opportunity, because the focus group report and then your reaction to it drives the brochure and the attributes and the characteristics that we're looking for in the next superintendent. And then that becomes the writing prompt that the candidates submit their written product to, so that you're kind of connecting the dots between what the community says, what the staff says, what you think about that, what we put in the brochure, and then what comes to you, so that then when we vet and when we screen, it all kind of comes together.
Perfect, thank you.
It sounds to me like the turnover rate in superintendents has been increasing in recent years. And I'm just trying to get a feel for your thoughts on what might be driving that, and if we have any control over how to do better.
COVID was a big hit. A lot of people said enough is enough, both between the challenges of just managing a school district through COVID, and then the community, polarization in the community. And some people wanted a mask, some people didn't want a mask, and there didn't seem to be any middle ground to it. And the school superintendents were caught in the middle of that.
Mm.
So that's a piece of it.
Yeah.
But we also have superintendents serving a long time. So I don't know there's much other than support and the same kind of things you would do, for any leader in your district. You want them to be successful, and you want them to know that their work is valued. And some of it's finding the right fit, making sure that the Mount Baker superintendent is a Mount Baker superintendent, in different communities.
And there's been some polarization on boards that our superintendents have struggled with, and they're at a point in their career where they said, "This is it. I've had enough. I'm not winning any of these battles. We're constantly at loggerheads." It seems to be out of COVID. It seems to be out of the whole. When we did Linden, I mean, there were protests. There were one group on one side, one on the other. And I'm sure you've got part of that here too, but it really gets hard to be a superintendent when it becomes a political job and you kind of lose the focus. You should be here for kids, which is why you guys are here. When you lose sight of that, it becomes really hard. And the turnover, we think it's kind of slowed down, to be honest with you. Yeah. And we don't see a lot of positions opening up in Western Washington or ASD. We don't see any in Eastern Washington. So it's pretty slow right now. I mean, if you reach out and go to Oregon and go nationally, which we don't go beyond Oregon and Idaho and Montana and that for as far as searches go. You may find more, but I think it was really hard during COVID, and I think you can see it in our whole society now. You're either one side or the other. It's real hard to get people to come together, which is a good thing for you as a board, though, because you have to come together to make this process work. You got to listen and you got to make decisions on. The bottom line is what you think is, you're going to get a lot of input, but the bottom line is you're making that decision.
Yeah, we try to make the community, remind the community time and time again that the board will be conducting the interviews, the board will be making the final decision, but the board doesn't want to do it in isolation. They need the community to provide input, and that's where that participation and the focus groups and the survey And they can be, if you do your interviews in open session, they can observe the interviews. When the finalists come in, there's an opportunity for the finalists throughout the day to meet with different groups, and those groups of teachers or coaches or whoever they are, bus drivers, they get to ask questions of those finalists as they come through. And at every step, every time there's interaction with a community member or staff member and a candidate, there's a process for them to provide input to you. And with technology, we've got some pretty slick tools that we didn't have in 2017 to gather that information and to summarize that information and make it readily available to you.
For the superintendents that you place in Washington and Skagit County, are they mostly like within 500 miles? Are they coming from all over? Is there any kind of pattern there?
Well, the Linden one was right in Linden, so that was pretty easy.
Yeah, he was born and raised in Linden, but
Ferndale came from Bellingham.
it depends on the board. There's unique things for each district. Mount Vernon really wanted to have a Spanish-speaking superintendent. Their former superintendent, who's now our ESD superintendent, Ismael Vivanco, just kind of set the bar for them to do that. So consequently, we recruited a lot of Spanish-speaking Latinx candidates for that job. And, the board will tell us, you tell us what you're looking for. Some boards may be looking for a certain gender. And that's, probably not going to be said in anything but executive session, but it is important. I think a lot of boards like not always, but like to hire maybe somebody that's had experience in a district the size of Mount Baker, for example, because you do wear a lot of hats and you do get a lot of good experience.
Right.
So I think it's helped a lot of people that were in Mount Baker to get other jobs. The fact that you do wear a lot of different hats here and you got a good reputation.
We gave up our assistant superintendent position here because we kept losing people like you.
We lost 3 that I know of. Yeah.
But I think like the last 6, 7, 8 searches, candidates from Washington State.
Okay.
Pretty
That
much.
were hired.
Yeah. And there's not, boards are reluctant to go outside of the state because of the steep learning curve that takes place. Washington is so unique in our funding, in our laws concerning education, and basically how our school system is set up, that they're worried that if we bring somebody in from Iowa that doesn't work with teachers unions, it doesn't work with unions because they have a right to work state. It really makes for a steep learning curve. Not to saying that you're not going to get a good one moving in, but it is more common to see people that are probably within
I think the other thing is for us, as we're doing our vetting, if we're vetting a candidate from Castle Rock, Washington, we probably know somebody in Castle Rock where we can get the street story from. If we're vetting a candidate from Connecticut, we may be able to make a bunch of phone calls, but we probably don't know the person we're talking to.
Right.
So the candidates that we have the most confidence in and that they're qualified and we get that reliable vetting of them kind of come to the top for us and when we do our ABC list that we talked about.
So in terms of, what makes a successful superintendent, you're looking at, competency. What types of things help you decide or think about what would make someone highly competent in that?
Well, we first look at what you want. That's what drives our work, because in the brochure, you can list challenges, but you're also going to have characteristics that you're looking for in that person. Obviously, we're looking for the right fit. We're looking for somebody that would be different here from, say, Lake Stevens. I mean, you're a rural community with many different communities attached. It's gonna have to be a person that can connect to the whole community. Your schools are your center of your community. I mean, you don't have any large industry here. You're not relying on a one town like a Linden would be or a Ferndale would be. So it's gotta be that person that it can reach out to all the communities and be seen. I think for Mount Baker, I just speak from my own experience, you have to ingratiate yourself with this community and all these communities. And you have to be visible and you have to understand how people think around here to make it work. People, when you look for candidates, that's kind of some of the filters we'll look through that maybe you put as characteristics you're looking for, somebody that has that kind of experience. I mean, we can't guarantee, but if you look at our track record, if you look at all the searches we've done, we have a pretty good record. We have a pretty good record.
Good question?
Danielle?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've made a really strong case for knowing our community and our district. I'm curious, when you're doing that vetting process, how your other prior background and experience translates to help you be good at that vetting. So for folks who are watching or listening who don't have a background in education, why is being a past superintendent helpful when you're, vetting and screening or other work that you've done professionally? How does that help you help us pick a good candidate?
We do know the job. We know the job of superintendent. And for example, I think we know the job of being a superintendent in a mid-size or small districts. And so there's a big difference between being a leader in Edmonds when I was superintendent Edmonds and being a leader in Conway when I was superintendent Conway. You carry more keys in Conway than you do in Edmonds. And so, I think the fact that, I think this is where you're going. We know the work, we know what it takes to be successful. And then we map that up with the profile of the people that are applying. And if somebody, say, has been a director of technology in a large district, they probably don't have the breadth to do this. We like people, generally speaking, that have kind of moved through the chairs, been a successful teacher, been maybe an assistant principal, maybe a district office administrator, and chances are in your size of district, you're going to get some superintendent applicants, but they might not be the best applicant. They might not be the best fit. But we like people that have a broad range of experience and have been successful along the way, probably moved up along the way, like Laurel, teacher, principal, district office, superintendent. That's hard to beat, particularly if they've done it in a district similar to Mount Baker. They say the best predictor of success is past success. So that's kind of what we look for. And then there's the soft skills stuff, communication, body language, all of that stuff, really important.
The bottom line is it has to be somebody you want to work with as a board. It's got to be somebody that you want to say, oh, I really would like to work with that person and have a good relationship with that person. And it kind of comes down a lot to that. But when we bring them forward, we like to look for candidates that have had prior success. And they're going to bring that success to the job here and bring that to
When we do our vetting too, we call all different folks. And so we get a really good picture of what that candidate's strengths are, maybe areas that they need to still grow. And then that goes into our scale and we're thinking about what you're looking for. We spend hours and hours calling.
Call supervisors and then call subordinates, people that report to them. So you get both looks at it.
Parents.
Executive assistants to superintendents are a great resource. Secretaries to, building office staff.
Other questions there?
I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, so I've got a few I wrote down. I was thinking about how Tim Yeomans ran a teacher certification program at Puyallup. I remember that. where he would take a barista and turn him into a teacher in a year, say. And then get to choose which ones you wanted to hire per hour. How do you see your job there at Western in that regard?
Fitting compliment, I think it really complements my search work, a couple of ways, and, there's a little bit of potential conflict. And so if a student from Western is an applicant for any of our pools, I don't vet them, Mark would vet them, Laurel would vet them. So I stay away from that. I don't advocate for them. You know, if somebody asked me a question about how they do in class, I can answer that. But for the most part, I haven't worked with them anymore. Most of our students at Western aren't applying for superintendent jobs right out of school. They're applying for district level jobs. Most of them are principals and they want to be an HR administrator like Nick, you know, that kind of thing. So I try to balance that, but I think what it does, it gives me a lot of think time about what the work is and what the skill sets are, and keeps me current on research. I think it's a good compliment, but we're very conscious of the potential conflict. You know, we all have experiences with all of the universities, really. We know all of those people, and we call them to say, hey, have you got anybody just coming out that ought to be a candidate for such and such? But I'm trying to be pretty sensitive to potential conflict. So that won't be an issue if we're selected to do the search.
So another question I have, so in the community outreach component, and we always have people who are willing to come and speak their mind. But what's been your experience in how you reach those portions of our community that don't and won't do that? And I'm thinking in our community, such as the Nooksack tribe, you can reach them, but you're not going to get them at the community forum. How do you make sure that your community outreach includes those groups of the community that normally don't feel engaged, say?
Well, we would need your input on who you're talking about, but say once a tribe, we would go to the tribe. You go to them, you go to their headquarters or wherever it is. I remember we went up to Paradise Valley last time.
Right.
Met with that community group up there and did that. I think you have to go to them. I don't think you can expect them to come in and fill the room up here with people that aren't normally involved. I mean, you're gonna get, I don't want to throw any names because I could, but you're gonna get your normal people that are normally involved. But if you have other groups of people that you know that are out, then you need to let us know, and we probably work with Tammy and set up a time and get their input. You know, we ask them 3 questions. We ask them, you know, what's really good about the school district? What are some challenges a new superintendent's gonna face? And what are the attributes? It's really simple. It's non-threatening. We try not to be, you know, we try to become connected with them so they can feel comfortable. But I think you gotta go out to them. I don't think there's any, I think a new superintendent's the same thing. I think you gotta go to them. You can't say, okay, I'm gonna have a meeting. And I know everybody used to say, all you gotta do is have pizza and everybody will show up. It doesn't always work that way.
Sometimes there's key communicators among those groups, like it might even be a district employee, somebody that you have pretty much access, and they're kind of the go-to person for that little subgroup. And just spending a little time with that person, say, well, what are they thinking? What do you think if they were here? What might they say? Because they talk among themselves. They know if we can get at those people, we can probably, you know, they can represent to some extent, but that's a challenge for us.
The Russian-Ukrainian community is a good example because I know you have a number of employees here that represent.
Right.
So meeting with them and then finding out how we can make connections. So
When you identify your focus groups and put together a schedule for us to meet with them, implement that schedule, calling out who those people are, even if it's a one-on-one with somebody who might represent a larger group of people. We can do that.
And with 3 of us, we can spread out pretty good, kind of like your whole district is spread out. We can spread out across your whole district.
Yeah, no, in Burlington, when they were doing the search, we had meetings in Spanish only.
Right,
And that made all the difference.
Sure.
For that.
yeah.
For that input.
Each community has a different set of.
Yeah,
The
various-
survey is pretty easy to do in English and Spanish. And in some cases, we did Russian and Mount
Mount
Vernon.
Vernon.
Yeah,
Russian, Ukraine.
yeah, Russian, Ukraine, a little harder, and we need a little more help from the district if we do multiple, other languages, English and Spanish, but we'd work with you on that. There's a need for that. The survey, even the Spanish survey, is always underrepresented. It's just not that's kind of a Anglo thing to fill out surveys, and not every culture embraces that concept.
Sure.
Yeah, there's some stuff.
Also, our fifth member here, Brenna, is not here tonight. She's manager of the North Fork Brewery and had shortage of staff for the night, so.
Well, maybe we'll go to her.
She's.
But-
next.
Yeah, right, you can go to next and complete your interview.
I'll take that.
Probably making
20
pizza.
minutes. We need pizza.
But she will watch this online and I will, she may have questions for both of the.
Sure.
Great.
Yeah, we're very open, and if you have questions, and when would you see you're making a decision?
So what our plan is, so we're, so that we allowed opportunity for community, have the presentation and then allow a chance for community input. So we're going to hold as our board discussion component of this meeting, discuss the superintendent search firm. And then, but not make a decision tonight. We plan to make a decision at our next meeting, which is September 26th.
Yeah.
And we'll make that in the action items, so we will have opportunity for people to either email us, call us, or speak at the public input section of our next meeting. So that's going to be our schedule for that. And the other thing I wanted to say is Bill worked out very well here, and I think it gave us a standard to look for.
Yes,
We're good, though.
I agree.
So whoever's helping us search has got.
Well, I think going into it, I knew Phil would be a good fit for you
Yeah.
guys, and
That was a low risk decision.
Well, I recognize that, but I also wanted to acknowledge that because I think it does show, as the seriousness of the superintendent search process. Because who that person is, and I think you all explained that very well. You look for a superintendent who likes all, doesn't pick sides, who embraces the community as a whole, and people feel like he or she is their person.
Yeah.
And that's it's a tall order to fill, and also is technically competent with those many hats because a small district is hard to run. You have to be good at HR. You have to really be good at finance and community relations and fair decision making and knowing the law. It's like,
Yep.
it's not, this isn't a real easy job. You'd think it's just 1,500 students, but it's,
No.
so we're, we do, and I think we're fortunate here both to have had the experience with Phil, but also I think we have a board that represents a good share of the community, and we work well together.
that's great.
I think we respect each other. We don't always agree on each and every, but we come to the conclusions that I think are, and I think those are those will stand us well in this search process, so. Appreciate your,
Yeah, thanks.
you know, getting into sort of the more of the nitty gritty of it.
No, it is a good process, and like I said at the first, there's a lot, you're gonna do some work at the front end, but really until the very end, when we bring the finalists or the candidates to you, and you start doing that, that's the end of the work too. So at the front and at the end is your main body of work.
Those last 3 days when the finalists come in, it's not 3 full days for you.
Yeah.
Your day starts about 5 PM with dinner, then the community forum, and then the executive session interview. Goes a little longer on the third day because you got to deliberate and try to reach like consensus on your thing. So like Mark says, we try to do the work and involve you at the strategic times and make it all work.
And
Seems to work.
we can come to, we like to tie the meetings we have in, at least until the end, into a board meeting. So it can be part of your board meeting. You can be part of a work session that we can do. And we're about being transparent. I mean, just like we are right now with the community member here.
So we really only have executive sessions with the screening report and the final interviews and the deliberations of the semifinalists.
Yeah.
And then final interviews.
Any
Okay,
further
you guys are
questions?
getting tired?
Good
Tammy is.
luck with your
Thank you.
decision.
Yeah, good luck.
It was nice to meet all of you.
Yeah,
Good to
thanks.
see you again
You go
too.
by Ed or Ed?
Likewise.
Ed, okay, good. Good. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you for
For your
coming
help,
and,
Tammy.
and
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks for your help. Yeah.
I will let you know on the 26th.
Thank you. Thank you. So excited for you. It's scary, but it's exciting. I know, I just have new board members on my way out and they're like, oh, we have to do something.
Okay, take care.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
So I'm
the
trying to see where you
opportunity.
were.
Good to see you again.
You were
Russ.
my principal at LU.
Thanks a lot. Good to see you again.
That's friends here. I was, oh my gosh. Well, you know what I said? I know a Bluetooth family.
Yes.
So I said, "That's my mama."
Yes.
Oh my
She's
gosh.
one of my favorites.
Look
working
at
here.
that.
And
That's my
It's a nice
hometown.
thing.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
So where was
Good to
that?
see you.
At
So-
LU.
So I still look that great.
Oh, my
Yeah. Yeah. And I went eight,
That's so
to
funny.
high school. so
Yeah.
same school.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for serving.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for.
Yeah.
Oh, tell your mom. Bob.
I will.
Oh my goodness.
Good to see you.
He was a student at LU.
Oh, you were? Yeah, she was my principal.
Do your folks live down there by?
Yeah, yeah, so they live right next to LU school.
That's what I thought they were in Berlin.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Good to
Oh,
see you.
thanks for coming, Mark.
Take care. One of those things that I didn't bring up though is we do want to get the brochure and get that out before the WASDA conference.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because we do a lot of work at the WASDA conference.
Yeah, right, definitely.
And we're, okay,
Okay, thank
Good.
you.
okay.
We'll wait till Tammy gets back. I see there's Tammy, so see where we left off there. We finished our presentations and next item is the board discussion of superintendent search. So we actually will probably wait.
Okay.
I'll let you know after
Getting
we
plenty
get
of work done,
with
don't
that.
worry about it. It's nice, I'm uninterrupted right now. You know how much work you can get done when there's no one else here?
We have to do this more often for you.
Thanks, Russ.
So, and as I mentioned, we're not intending to make a decision. You can feel free to say I'm leaning this way or that way, or I see that. But I'd like to start out by what your impressions are, what you learned, any further questions you might have. And you know, things like that. So Jason?
I think they're both got a lot of pros. I think you got a aggressive way, maybe with like Northwest leadership. I mean, and they admit it, they hit it very tough when they start, right? So I have to, maybe aggressive is a bad way to say it, but that's kind of the feeling that I get with them. I think you're gonna get them reaching out to groups and people, and they know people. The other one, HYA, I think very, very good too. A lot of, I mean, yeah, it's gonna have to do a lot of research and personally research and thinking of, what I think there, because I think both groups have a lot of similarities. I like both, for their public interaction. I like both their styles, and it seems like there's gonna be plenty of that. And like they both said, there's no way, no reason that they should say they weren't informed of what was going on. Or no, I think both groups have a very good plan for that, which makes me happy. So yeah, I think a lot of pros with both. It's gonna be a decision that's gonna take some thinking for personally.
Yeah, I think both are very competent, professional, do a great job. I like you had a question about selling. So that's an interesting part, and I think that is probably an important part, because we are coming out of, we're on the right track, but we need a team that can help sell us as well as a district and what we have. As great as we think we are, and we know we are, you still have to have a way to promote that and get out there.
Yeah, we still have binding conditions on the back.
Yeah, I think, because I think if you know us more closely, you probably would get a different picture than just looking at the fact that we're in binding conditions.
Right.
That tells you one thing, but it doesn't tell you the whole story.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, being more.
And also sell the track that we're on.
Right.
Right, that we're in bind, we're still binding, but we're doing better, right? And WASDA and these groups are happy with the things we're doing, right? So that be able to sell that part of everything.
That's an important component.
Yeah, I'm actually very I'm just very touched by our staff at, at the all district meeting, after we've had to cut 23 positions. And still getting that sense that we're gonna come out of this and we're hopeful about it, and we're not gonna just, mope around and neglect our work, but we're enthusiastic about our kids. And I think that, as far as selling,
Right.
that speaks really well for our staff, really well. Danielle?
HYA gave a great presentation. I thought that they were clear and prepared. And then in terms of transparency and sort of showing us and telling us simultaneously, they were great communicators. And I got the impression that they'd be great facilitators also. They might lean on us to give them more information about the district to help do that facilitation. I liked what they said about their data analytics. I got a sense that maybe Northwest Associates has some of that capacity too. We didn't get a chance to drill in as much about that. I'm super impressed with Mark Ben and his understanding of the district. That came through loud and clear. And the things that he said about knowing our different communities, about knowing that people who grow up in this community, stay in the community, are invested in the community. Those are the kinds of things that we could tell the other, we could tell HYA about us, to translate on to try to sell us. But, Mark Ben is telling us without having to have it explained to him. He knows that. And to me, that's worth a lot. To have somebody representing Mount Baker that understands what makes us special. I like that. That was a strong plus. That's where I'm standing right now. We've got to process some more things, but that's what stood out to me. I also appreciated some of, like you said, some of the details and nuances that they were able to sort of talk us through about what the process looks like. In terms of board relationship and how that's gonna make us stronger as a board, and sort of, there was another moment, that really stood out to me. I wrote it down. Give me a second. Oh, there's just a lot of nice detail in thinking through the process of, like, just that we should announce to our staff who the chosen finalist is before we announce to the community. Those kind of little nuances and making sure to communicate them to the board. That also impressed me, that level of care and detail is there, and make sure that we do this as clearly and as transparently as possible, because we've been through a lot.
Yeah.
As a community, and we want to be careful with the responsibility that we've been given to make this decision. And so some of those little finer details to me seem really important, and they came through, that they're aware of that.
Yeah, I think, Mark and Wayne and Laurel actually too, but primarily Mark and Wayne, because they've worked with us a lot, know us and care about the outcome. They want our school district to be stronger at the end of this superintendent search process. I mean, I think they're very invested in us coming out stronger as a result of it. And also, as far as the recruiting, I do like that down in the trenches recruiting myself, because that's how we successfully ended up with Phil here. If we had, some people suggested to me, just post the position.
He would have never put in for it.
Huh?
He would have never put in for it. Right?
Yeah. But it was only because of the recruiting, it was only because, okay, here's the board now. Phil, you can, you can be successful here. It's that kind of down in the trenches type stuff. And then as he was leaving, Mark said, you need to have your brochure before it was a conference. Because if they were hired, you'd be working the ropes at the WASDA conference, finding who's, and that's kind of like, okay, here's the game plan. And I think both of them are highly competent. But I think the difference is in knowing the community, that community engagement, having the community feel like they were really part of it, of the process, and that type of recruiting that hopefully ends up with the strongest candidate pool. It's challenging to get that to all come together. But I think that I think we bet, cost wise, they're essentially the same. There's a little bit of difference in the bottom line,
Yeah.
but then there's difference. You
Add
add
the fees in.
the fees in.
Fees for
and-
the background check.
Yeah, so then, and I think we do need a background check.
I agree, yes.
I'm not, the online background check that's necessary now. What's your social media been? What did you say 12 years ago?
We don't want surprises.
No.
Yeah, we don't want to find that out 2 years from now. So I think it's to include that in there is a necessity nowadays. But
Jason, when you said that's a difference in styles, I think you're right,
Yeah.
right? HYA, again, it feels more facilitation. I feel like they'd go out into the community and listen really well, and people would probably be really comfortable talking to them. And we'd get high quality feedback. The more aggressive, go out and try to, rattle cages and see who might be interested. Also has its advantages, especially in a smaller community. I don't know how many applicants we're gonna get. You never really know until you put out a job call, how many people are looking at the moment that we have need, right?
Yeah.
But
They're both gonna advertise on Waza,
same places.
Mount Baker, and so the difference is that the HYA has a bigger network of national,
They have a bigger
the
national,
national network,
Yeah.
and Northwest, is more of a phone
Go in and
networking.
find people who might not have even been thinking about
Right.
it, but that
Right.
would be great for the job.
Both approaches can create different types of opportunities.
They can. And Mark Ben's point about the uniqueness of Washington State and our education system, I mean, obviously they're leaning toward that's a preference for candidates, is somebody who already has that background or skill.
Yeah.
An understanding of our
We
state
mentioned
law.
Washington, Oregon.
Yeah.
Oh, Montana.
Yeah.
Kind of the north.
Yeah.
even within Washington. So Jerry Hunter did a good job here. When he first came, I remember the first big snowstorm, Mount Baker was the only one that didn't have school closed because he'd come from Eastern Washington. What's a foot or two of snow? He learned it pretty quick, but even within Washington, there are differences.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think our unique laws, labor relations,
Big.
if you fail at labor relations, you fail.
That's a huge part of
I mean, 85% of our budgets.
Negotiation skills
Yeah.
will be on the list of qualities. They're
Yeah.
important.
But labor negotiations specifically, right? I mean, that and understanding how to do that. It's like you've got a
Right, yeah.
huge part of our budget is people. And so that's it.
Well, it's people skills. But there are aspects of people skills that have to be learned.
Mhm. And negotiating a contract is not just soft people skills. It's not just listening and relating and finding common ground.
No, that's how you get eaten for lunch.
So, those are specific skills. So it's got me thinking about, what we need for a superintendent in new
Yeah.
ways. I found that conversation to be very educational.
Well, I mentioned that Phil gives us a good example, and I guess for people tasting foods, it's like a palate cleanser, where you get a chance to just, because you don't want to just be correcting what was wrong the last. That's a big mistake. You have to start fresh and look what makes the best superintendent for all times. This time, but in general, so, and so that's different than just looking to see, well, if we're weak on finance, then we just need finance. Well, if you just do finance, are you doing HR? Are you, so you gotta look at that 360 degrees. And it's having a strong candidate pool and having people with that 360 degree skill level is going to be critical for our success. And hopefully it'll be a hard decision for us.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, I think that would be our ideal, is where we have a strong enough, numbers of candidates. I think last time we probably had 25, 30 names there. Some of them had been chief dog catcher in Missoula or what, I don't know, maybe not as big a town as Missoula, but But, you know, so the first filtering out, you don't, you know, you get down to the real candidates, but. Anything else on the discussion? I think I got a pretty good sense of the direction. And then we'll revisit this as an action item next time, so we have a chance to discuss it before we take a vote. And then, like I say, Brenna's planning on watching, and so if she has any more input, she'll have another opportunity to discuss it then. So.
I have one more comment.
Yeah.
I really appreciate, you know, you said that it seemed like Northwest Associates is engaged in our success, and an indication of that for me was when Mark said that they were open to being flexible with the costs of things because they're aware of our binding conditions situation. And I thought, you know, how much flexibility? Okay, but the fact that he's even saying that, I think indicates that there's a sincere
Right.
desire to see good things for our district.
And also they give a 2-year guarantee.
That's
So
big.
they'll do it for free again if it doesn't work.
That's big.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to call on that, but it's like your car, you know, you hope if it does break down, it breaks in the first 2 years.
Yeah, that kind of a warranty, yeah. Yeah, I like that also.
So any other? If not, I'll call back in. Nick. Are you're going back there? Okay.
Thank you.
You probably went back on your own last time.
Yeah.
This over here. Yeah. I'm glad we had at least two listen to.
Yeah.
We gave us a chance to
Here's your perspective.
weigh then you understand what you're doing more.
Yeah.
So. Next
Welcome.
item is, welcome back, Nick.
Thanks.
Next item is a letter to Whatcom County Council. I drafted this is, I had prepared comments for the Board of Natural Resources at their most recent meeting here in early September, covering much of the same things, and so I made a bit more tailored for the county council. The reason for that I think it is valuable for us to communicate with the county council is when I spoke to them probably 6-8 months ago at their invitation on an earlier round of pausing of timber sales, kind of left it where I felt that they started to understand the challenge that we're stuck with. But I have been getting indications that they are, 6-8 months, maybe however many months later, sort of gotten back into like, okay, let's pause these sales again. And I don't think they fully understand what a delay does to, our bills, we can't delay for.
I'm more
2-3
cynical.
months.
I think they understand and don't care.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're probably correct about that, but I'm not gonna. Anyway, so anyway, that I prepared this and I think this is a chart that I got from Brian. I think you've seen this before, of our timber revenue from 2015 to 2023, that if you read from the bottom up to the present, you've got years in the bottom. Some of them there's a 1.5, a 900,000, 1.5 million, a 1.8 million, a 376 thousand on 1.9 million. And then all of a sudden you get up to 22, 23 with the pauses and you get $107,000. Just, and then you look at that in tandem with our budget deficit. And there's a direct, I mean, there's other things we could have done, we should have done to prevent the deficit, certainly. But this is a large part of it. And so I'm just, I felt that by communicating to council, if there are some on the fence on whether to ask for a pause on this sale and other, because the other point is, so this is the first, Little Lily's the first sale in the program for this fiscal year. But the whole program that we're expecting somewhere in the $700,000–800,000 revenue from Mount Baker are predominantly coming from similar type of timber class. As Chris Hankey pointed out to us, they've mined the younger timber class because they had to wait while the Marble Miller decision is being made and get the sustainable harvest out of young. So they really don't have a timber base that they can get the sustainable harvest class, sustainable harvest level out of without utilizing some of the stands that were held off of harvest while they were completing the Marble Miller decision. So we're going to be facing this all year. And I thought if we can just explain it right up front, hopefully we can get it across. So that's the focus. So
I think it's a well-written letter. I mean, it's pretty succinct. You know, we're up against the Sierra Club and other well-oiled machines that are asking the same council not to approve it or to, you know, interfere with it. So I don't know. I think it'd be appropriate to say, you know, we're also gonna submit an editorial to Cascade Daily News, or we're gonna ask our, you know, the people in our community to write the council an email just saying, don't interfere with the sale. Let them know that people care about this, right? Because if they just get it and it's just personal and no one else knows about it, this isn't on anyone's radar, and we're up against some pretty big opponents.
And I think that's an excellent point that, you know, that as reaching out to say like Cascade Daily is valuable to if they're interested in that, because I think it
I would
is.
let the council know that we're gonna try and get the word out that we don't need them to do anything. We just need them to not interfere with the sale. Just stay out of it. Right? So you want to ask people, email them and, you know.
Yeah. And I think we can do that. I don't think I would want to go that far in the written letter, because I think we have to stay.
Well, how are you gonna
can
send them this letter?
email.
So it's an attachment, right? You have to say something in the email, say, you know, we're gonna be writing an
Yeah,
editorial.
that's true. That's
right?
true.
You
This
have a
could
way
be the
to
letter
communicate
and
that.
say we're also reaching out.
But it's $700,000, right? So.
Well, this sale is just about 300, but it's part of.
Overall.
Yeah,
Right.
no, you're right, yeah. No, that's a good methodology.
Are you on Facebook, Danielle? Can you ask people to email the council and tell them not to interfere with it? That would be awesome.
We'll just
Get the moms going. Get the moms and the dads. Fill their inboxes.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, Mount Baker people, they're driving me crazy. We want our money.
Well, the problem is pause this one, right? And then we're gonna ever see any hope, really, right? We're seeing a downward downward spiral or decision makings on allowing timber sales to go through to help us and other things, right? And if this one doesn't have any, it'd just be one more pause on the docket, right? And it's gonna make it not look good for the future.
So I think it's, you know, it's enough, it's a significant enough revenue for us that we can't leave it without making a sincere effort.
Exactly.
And I think, I don't see it as a battle so much as balancing out the discussion. And really pointing out that there is a cost. It's not just, I think a lot of people think that a delay is just a delay. But it's an actual cost for a current year budget.
What's the saying? Justice delayed is justice denied. Feel the same way about this. They
Right.
delay it, it's denying it.
And also the other, the other addressee of this letter is the Department of Natural Resources Administration. If you look on the CCs, you know, there's Paul Sadu and Hillary France is the next one. And a county can ask for a pause, the DNR doesn't have to pause. They don't, so I think kind of broadening out the voices has some merit that way too.
Can we just add the Cascadia on the CC? I mean, that kind of,
Well, we can forward it to them.
yeah,
I can also imagine, I mean, there's plenty of times where the reporters will watch recordings of this
Yeah.
board meeting.
they do.
So it's very likely
Yeah.
a reporter will see this and perhaps reach out.
They make
Well-
it 2 hours and 50 minutes into the board meeting.
Yeah, I think,
It's a letdown looking at the graph per se, right? It's kind of bums you out when you look at the dollars from 15 and 16 or even 19 and 20. I mean, $1.9 million in 19 and 20, not that long ago.
No,
yeah, and so the slowdown from 2020 on those years where it went from 1.9 million to just about 1 million and then about 800,000, that was because the DNR had to correct their 10-year sustainable harvest level. They had not finished their calculations 5 years into the next period, and they had over harvested the first 5 years of that period. So they had to balance it out for the last 5 years. That's understandable. It wasn't due to any county action there. That was
I
just.
can live with that.
Huh?
I can live with that.
Yeah, and because we get the same amount over the 10 years of what the sustainable harvest level is. It's a total harvest, but they just had to recalculate what years it was harvested in to end up at the end of the decade with proper, at that proper level for the full 10 years. Which is based on the ability of the forest to grow in the areas that are allowed to be harvested. This is, it's basically scientific calculation. So,
it's a tricky argument to make because not all the school districts in the area rely on timber dollars.
well, not all the school districts rely on oil refinery money either,
Right,
you know?
right. But do you know what I'm saying? So here we are, a lone voice.
And I think that's one of my questions about this is, let's say the county representative who covers most of Bellingham had voted to pause this. How informed is that person about sustainable harvesting practices, right? We live and work in this area. We know that the harvesting that's going on is not a bad thing. Like, it's not killing the earth. It's this is sustainable. It's managed by people who care about the environment. And I'm just curious about when those people who vote for the pause, if they're just saying, no, we never want to cut any tree down ever, or if they understand that we're harvesting timber sustainably, just the same way we harvest corn, right?
Right.
Well-
And that this harvest has been earmarked to
Mhm.
support the
Right.
education
Mhm.
of students in our district. And if you take it away without having a plan in place for adjusting for that,
Right.
then you are essentially interfering with the promised funding of K through 12 education
Mhm.
to a group of students who, as we know, are a high percentage of low-income families, right? And so it's a tough conversation, because the folks that want to see the pause are coming at it from what they believe to be informed and
Mhm.
impassioned position. And I don't know that people fully understand what's at stake for an
Mhm.
equally important impact
Mhm.
that really should have a plan in place for how to offset that impact before you roll it out onto a bunch of young people
Yeah.
and their education.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that of the land under DNR management, about half of it is off limits to harvest for various environmental reasons.
Already.
Riparian zones, spotted owl, marbled nearlit, steep slopes. So the sustainable harvest is only calculated on that remaining half of the land that's available for harvest. And this sale, like all of the sales that the DNR is proposing, come out of that half of the land. So it's like, like the United Way. I gave it the office. We've already given up a lot just to get to where we're at. And then if each time a new timber sale comes along and, oh, no, that's the last tree standing, it's not true.
Right.
And nor is it fulfill, this is a trust. And it has to be, I think I gave a presentation here of the rules that DNR operates under as a trust manager. And they have to give undivided loyalty to the beneficiaries. And so I think that, people may not like that, but I think putting our voice into the mix is important. And
And it's our job as a board to represent the needs of our students in our district. And we are all in nonpartisan roles. So our first obligation is to represent the needs of the students, and this is a major impact on the needs of our students. So I'm happy to sign it.
so it's an action item, so I guess we should just take a quick vote on it. If I would entertain a motion to approve sending this letter to Whatcom County Council.
Motion to approve sending the letter to Whatcom County Council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then there's on the version that Tammy has it, there's a place for all of us to sign it.
Right.
And we can figure out how to get Brenna there. Good. Superintendent report.
Yeah, so I'll keep it pretty lighthearted and rather short. It's been a long evening as it is, and so as I shared with you in the updates that go to you weekly, I've switched the family communications to monthly communication, and in this upcoming one next Wednesday, I'm going to share about some plans I've put together that I shared with you and the principals back in August about those informal community connection meetings. I've developed a schedule, shared that with the principals. Team has opportunities for community members and families in the district to come sit down and chat with me and, no agendas, just come ask questions, get clarifications, hopefully bring some positive news too. And so I'll share those dates out, but just a quick glance at them. On October 8th, I'll be at Harmony prior to the PTO meeting, so that way I'll just roll right in and stay for the PTO meeting. I'll be here on the Demi campus on October 17th before a varsity volleyball game. So I've paired them with some things that hopefully will make it easier for folks to attend that we're already going somewhere. Then November 13th, I'll be at Acme following their PTO meeting, and then on the 18th, I'll be at Kendall following their PTA meeting. So again, I'll communicate that out to everyone widely this Wednesday.
Is that pretty typical
For
superintendent?
Yeah.
PTA meetings? Okay.
Yeah, and so in those cases, I'll attend those PTA meetings. It's not typical to go to everyone, but since I will already be there for this community connection event,
Okay.
so that part is what's typical for superintendents, is this monthly check-in, and especially, as an interim superintendent navigating that, not doing a full entry plan, but also still making sure we're not feeling stagnant with things, right? Yeah, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to connect with families. I get a chance to do it in a myriad ways already, but it's nice to have a time and space just to do it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll share those dates out with the wider community this Wednesday. And that's all I've got.
And also, I don't know, did you have off the top of your head the enrollment numbers?
Yep, actually, it's funny, I wrote your weekly update during my slip out, so it's at 1512 right now. And so I'll remind you that our enrollment budget is 1448.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So
some positive news.
that's positive.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah,
very good.
so we're happy.
And what did we end last year at?
We ended lower than that. We ended at like 1495. Yep. So with a budget last year of 1530.
Yeah.
So, I kudos to this group for working hard on a conservative budget, a conservative revenue projection, because that's going to be how school districts try to remain sustainable, is trying to, we've had to make some hard decisions, and there's folks who are working incredibly hard this year, teachers and paraeducators and support staff alike. We're having to become more and more efficient, but there's a positive sign that our enrollment is where it's at right now.
You just asked, what did you say was our last year's enrollment?
At this time last year, I want to say it was higher than this where it is right now. We ended at 1495. I can see if I can quickly pull up where we ended last year though.
Yeah, with the
So-
track trend,
Oh, yeah.
So well, next, looking that up, before, I think it's September 27th, we need to register for the annual conference in November. We've talked about that before. Are all of you able and planning on attending?
Yes.
So what were the dates again?
It's
21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
Yeah, that's right.
you get the dates there?
21st, 22nd, 23rd, I'll double check.
Okay,
And it's in Spokane.
yeah. And Tammy, for registering, I won't need a hotel. I'll stay with relatives.
Okay.
Thursday, 21st, Friday, 22nd, Saturday, 23rd. And Jason, you may want to do the onboard
Yeah.
pre-conference or board boot camp. Pre-conference, which is on Thursday morning at 9 AM. And so last year when I did it, I actually went down the night before, even in Bellevue on Wednesday. But I was already
Sure.
in town, right? And then I could get up and hit that conference just because trying to fly to Spokane and be there for 9 AM. and
Tricky.
tricky.
Yeah.
So Jason would probably need to at least come in earlier than the rest of us if he's gonna do that pre-conference workshop, and it's really
I think
helpful.
you're supposed to, right?
You're supposed to.
Yeah.
And then you can do like the open government training and some of the things that you're required to do as a member.
I've got a potential conflict on the 21st, but, we have another?
Yeah.
If you're gonna not need a room for that, make sure that Tammy knows.
Okay.
Yeah, because it does fill up, so,
But whichever, yeah, now is the time to reserve what you wanna reserve, because
Yeah.
it's a big conference.
I'm planning to go.
so I'll wait, I haven't heard from Brenda, but I'll try to do that all next week. But
And then also for the three of us, the General Assembly is the 20th and 21st of this month. There's a Zoom option is free. I'm still studying whether I want to attend. I called Waza this morning to see if they would give a registration break for attending just one day, but they weren't set up to do that. But I will figure that out soon and register. But were you thinking of doing Zoom attendance or which?
Probably the Zoom attendant, yeah.
Because if you do the Zoom attendance and you're not the ledge rep, then you can sign in without registering.
Okay, and so then it's free, I don't have
It's
to
free.
register, I can just watch.
And you can watch, you can't vote, but only one person can vote. It doesn't have to be the ledge rep, but then you have to keep passing the baton,
Okay,
which is easy to do in person, but it's harder to do.
I'll let you
Zoom.
vote if you want to be.
Yeah, and I think that it would be nice from an educational standpoint to kind of figure out how we can communicate, chat on the side, say, maybe just with phone chat. Yeah, figure that if there's some things that are coming up and what your opinions are and stuff.
Okay.
I'm too slow on typing to really
Okay,
word it, but
okay.
And
okay, well,
did you know yet what the schedule is as far as most of the voting will be?
yeah, I think the bulk of it will be on the first day of Friday because there's a 1 hour kind of business type meeting at first. And you kind of setting protocols, and then we'll bump right into voting. And so my past experiences, that means that the bulk of stuff will happen on the first day, and then whatever's left over will happen on the second day.
so Rush, you'll let me know if I need to register you this for the General Assembly?
Yeah, I think if I decide to go down there, I might just register myself. I
Okay.
can probably handle it. I'm not down to the last dollar yet.
Okay.
And I'll watch from my office on the
Okay.
20th.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
But I think it's, if we do kind of do some communicating during it, it's a good learning experience. And that's what's so nice about all going there together in person, because then you're just, okay, here's the next thing coming up and here's the issue. And the other advantage of going in person, like when I look back at the years, things that I've been able to accomplish there, one year when we had the McClure decision and our local levy was limited at $1,500 per student. At the next WAS decision, I introduced an amendment to increase that by $1,000. It wasn't gonna be on the agenda. Everybody said, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then we brought that to the legislature and were successful at increasing the local levy from 1,000. So that gives us $1.5 million a year that we wouldn't have all.
Couldn't you have said 2,000, Russ? Could you have just said 2,000?
Well, it is 2,000 now, because we also put in an inflation factor.
Ah, see?
So, yeah. No, I didn't want, I figured we'd lose.
There's a sweet
You
spot.
gotta psych out these things, you know? I've never really played poker, but you know. But you psych out the things, so, and also this, the support of WASA for things like timber revenue have come from those in-person relationships. And, so I think that it's,
There's value to going.
there's value, and I hope that we get back to that as an organization where it's mostly in person, because we've had some, I felt that it's damaging to WASDA with the last year's, I thought was left people kind of in tatters to have the, because you can do things online that you would never do in person. I mean, everybody's experienced that differential. And so I think you know what I'm talking about, but anyway. So that's kind of where that's at.
This time last year, 1508. So actually better this year.
What's that?
This time last year, it's 1508.6 FTE. We're actually higher right now than we were this day last year.
Okay, good.
That is better than the trending 3% annual decline.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually in some ways. Going flat is. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
really
yeah.
good.
Exactly.
Very good.
Flat is good. Woo.
So we're, our next meeting, of course, September 26th, and with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you for patience tonight. I think we had a